Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners special meeting regarding the 2012 budget. A few opening comments or remarks. Commissioner Sonny Wheelock and Commissioner Larry Fleece are excused from the meeting. They are unable to attend this meeting. If you have a cell phone, please put it on silent or vibrate. That would be most helpful. And from there, we will move forward with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I guess I will call on Commissioner Richardson to lead us in that pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, if we can have the clerk do the attendance roll call, please, and with Commissioner Wheelock and Commissioner Fleece, if you can mark them excused.
Commissioner Gilman?
Here.
Henschel?
Here.
Lemkool?
Here.
Richardson?
Here.
Thomas?
Here.
Maxbauer? Here. Inman?
Here. Okay, we have a quorum. Next item is public comment. And I just want to make a declaration. We try to make this as accessible to the public as we can in terms of how we manage our agenda, especially for the budget. The budget's probably one of the more important things that we do in terms of our statutory responsibilities. And so we have a time for public comment. You can make any public comment you wish to make. The clerk will read the rules. We also have under discussion topic items a number of items that appear. And if you see an item that piques your interest that you would like to speak about with regard to any of those issues listed, then I certainly would recognize any member of the public before the board makes a decision to come up and speak on that matter. So we want to make this real flexible and easy on your part as well. So with that understanding, you do have an opportunity before we begin any discussions on any of the items regarding the budget to make public comment, and the clerk will read the rules.
Any person shall be permitted to address a meeting of the Board of Commissioners which is required to be open to the public under the provision of the Michigan Open Meetings Act as amended. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. A, any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. B, no person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions. The chairman shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. Chairperson may, at his or her discretion, extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak.
Okay, you have heard the rules regarding public comment. Does any member of the public wish to speak at this time? If you could indicate so by raising your hand, and we will acknowledge you, and you can come up one by one. Okay, seeing no hands and no indication for public comment, we will close public comment. We will move on to discussion topic items. And the first item is the issue of tax revenue, and that was placed on the agenda by Commissioner Christine Maxbauer. And Commissioner Maxbauer, you have the floor on that item at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I'm going to ask Dean Bott to speak to this issue. As you all know, I've expressed concern on a number of occasions about our revenue projections as well as our use of fund balance. And I just think it behooves us as we go through the budget this afternoon that we be reminded of where our revenue projections are going and how much, and I would like to have a discussion as to how much fund balance this board is going to use. I understand that the county administrator put $625,000 of use of fund balance in the 2012 budget, but I would like to hear from commissioners whether or not they feel that's an appropriate number, and I will already tell you that I think it's too high. I think we need to spread it out. But with that, I will ask Dean to address the tax revenue.
I provided an analysis just a few minutes before the meeting, and Dennis and I prepared this morning, so I do apologize that it was not emailed to you sooner. To walk through it, it is a one-page summary, so we can get through it fairly quickly. The first 5 lines are the projection that we use to build the recommended budget. The county treasurer assisted with this projection. We started off with the 2011 tax levy. These are the tax bills that went out on July 1st. We did reduce that amount by $114,752 for potential Board of Review and Michigan Tax Tribunal adjustments. And then we added in $50,000 for additional personal property tax revenue based on the Discovery program that's currently in process, arriving at a net projected tax revenue for 2012 of $20,650,000. That is in the recommended budget. What we thought we would do then is take a look at this. You know, we're 2 months further down the road than when we built or came up with this projection, and that's what I'm doing starting just before the middle of the page. It's headed Alternative Projection, starting with the same tax levy for the tax bills that went out on July 1st of this year, and this is the county tax revenue only. I talked with Lori Spencer, our equalization director, regarding the total known value that's before the Michigan Tax Tribunal. That is the $474,000 amount that's bracketed. So that's a large number. I believe it's $95 million in taxable value that's before the Tax Tribunal. That's the requested amount of reduction in taxable value, and that equates to approximately $475,000 in tax revenue for Grand Traverse County alone.
Dean, I have a question. Now, when you say Grand Traverse County, are you talking general fund tax revenue, or are you including things like the Commission on Aging, pavilions?
Commissioner, this analysis is only for our general fund.
Okay.
Those other county entities, the Commission on Aging and the pavilions that also receive tax revenue, would be affected as well.
Okay, thank you.
The adjusted tax revenue then is $20,239,826. We are not at this point in time in the projection that we discussed previously, including any adjustment for the change in the consumer price index. The state of Michigan will give us that number about October 15th, and that's the number that is applied under the current tax structure in this state to increase taxable value. And my note below, the first note under notes, through August 31st, which is 11 months, it's based on the state's fiscal year, it's tracking just under 2.5%. And that's not an exact science, because not every parcel will go up by 2.5%. You know, there's going to be losses, additions, losses, changes to the tax roll, but it's just for discussion purposes at this point. So what I've done is I've included in the alternative projection a 2% increase in the CPI, which generates $404,796. I've also added in the additional personal property tax revenue as we did in the original tax projection, bringing the revised tax revenue amount to $20,694,622 based on the alternative projection, which supports the number that we initially built into the budget with a little bit of a cushion in it. And I would like to point out the second note. We're also not considering in any of our projections at this time the value of new construction based on our construction code office permits that were issued through September 15th of this year. That value is estimated at $48 million and would generate additional tax revenue if that value hit the tax rolls or taxable value of approximately $240,000. That is not built into the projections.
Dean, on the tribunal amounts, is that an absolute number, or do we expect a certain percentage of that to be successful?
I wish we could answer that question.
Full.
This is the full amount.
We're assuming we lose everything.
Okay.
And the only,
Any historical reference?
I wouldn't want to speculate
Okay.
what it would be. We, currently, as they rule on those parcels, or I don't know if that's the right terminology, cases,
We're in new territory these last 2 years. Prior to that, there were only a fraction of these kinds of appeals that went to the tax tribunal, but now that because of the economy and the fact that individuals and firms can go directly to the state tax tribunal as opposed to the local board of review, we're seeing the numbers are up significantly. The number of challenges are up significantly. Because of that, and because of the lack of resources on the local level, in many cases, there are stipulations made to a settlement at the tax tribunal, which has increased the percentage significantly. So it would be almost impossible to give you any kind of a trend.
I can tell you, though, what the numbers are year-to-date for the county general fund, and I think this is through 8 months. We have received Michigan Tax Tribunal adjustments of just under $140,000 through 8 months of 2011.
How much, 140,000?
Just under $140,000.
Okay, and Commissioner Lomco.
Yeah, we had, I thought we were working with the city attorney to represent us on some of those tax tribunals. With her leaving the city, will we continue to contract with her on that?
We have been working with local units of government when they've asked our assistance. I don't know what the situation will be in the city now. I mean, they're hiring a new, I assume they're hiring a new attorney, and we'll have to see what the city manager says when that occurs.
But I thought that she was the most knowledgeable, and that's why we were trying to work with her on some of this stuff.
Don't know that. I'm not familiar with that.
And the other question on the $50,000 for personal property tax revenue, is that after the payment to the contractor for providing those services?
I do not know.
Because we have to pay a percentage of that stuff to the contractor, if I remember correctly.
I think it was a fixed amount per parcel. So no,
$250 per parcel that we collect on.
this
Right.
is
That
a
we
gross
collect
number.
on.
Yeah.
So the number is 64,000 that's potential revenue. We have an estimate of 50,000 in here, but that also is contingent on the local treasurer is actually billing it and collecting it. So, that's a guess on our part as well.
Commissioner Richardson.
I mean, any discussion of revenue, I think, is only legitimate if we discuss all the revenue. Obviously, the property tax is the most important part of our revenue, but we also receive revenue into the tax revolving fund from the fees and interest that we collect on people who are late on their taxes. And quite frankly, because of the economy we've been in the last couple of years, this has been growing rather remarkably. I have here the fund balance estimates from which Bill Rokas prepared. I received it September 12th, and these are, I believe, the current numbers. And in the tax revolving fund itself, the revenue is growing from the amount of money in the fund at the end of 2010 was $11.4 million. At the end of 2011, he's estimating it to be $12.5 million. So we have a little over $1 million in revenue there, which is not being acknowledged. And by the way, that also includes after an extra $438,000 was transferred out of that fund to prepare for a future road bond payment. And even his 2012 estimate is at $12.3 million, so it shows only a very slight decline. I still believe the only logical way when we're talking general fund balance is to acknowledge all or at least part of the tax revolving fund, because it basically has the same status as our general fund. Everybody's talking about the general fund balance being about $8 million, but we have to recognize that we have another $12 million plus in the tax revolving fund, which has no different status really from the general fund except for what we call it.
Yeah, and I guess the only comment I would have to that, and then I'll call to Commissioner Gilman, is that as that fund gains income from penalties and interest due to the unfortunate circumstances of real estate foreclosures or tax sales and those kinds of things. I guess we'd have to ask Bill, and I don't know if he's prepared to make a remark about this today or at some later point, but we'd have to ask him, based on the trend of the number of real estate, either commercial and or residential, the trend of that fund in terms of the number of real estate units going into that fund, whether we would need that increase for 012 to cover the delinquent taxes from a larger base coming into that fund, but I don't know that.
Bill is here to address this issue if you need his input during the discussion.
Okay. So we can, it's not listed particularly in the agenda, but it could be defined under tax revenue. So, Bill, do you feel comfortable trying to respond to that question? You can? You cannot? Oh, okay. Why don't you give us some guidance on that? If you could. And get yourself introduced for the folks in the audience. And
Yeah, Bill Rokas, Grand Traverse County Treasurer. Mr. Richardson is right. We have roughly $12 million in fund balance in this delinquent tax revolving fund. The one thing to remember, though, is what this fund is intended to do, which is to purchase the delinquent taxes and to pay off all the governmental units at the time of delinquency so they have cash in their budgets to operate on. So the thing to remember is this $12 million in fund balance, at the end of each year over the last 3 years, we've averaged, even though we've had a $12 million fund balance, our cash balance has only been between $5.5 million and $6.8 million. So a lot of the fund balance is made up of taxes receivables that we have not collected yet, because those are collected over a 2-year period of time. And this, in 2011, was the first year that we were funded fully again. The last 2 years, we have not had enough cash. We had to delay the general fund payment to not go, so we didn't have to go out and borrow. That's not to say we can't go out and borrow. We can go out and borrow funds and make this cash available to the general fund, but the purpose of the fund is to do, as I explained. Over the last 2 years and budgeted for 2012, we've actually budgeted an additional $3 million out of this fund to the general fund, over and above what would have come to the general fund if we didn't have this revolving fund. So we are not holding money in this fund unnecessarily. If funds become available, I have made those available to the county.
okay. All right. Any questions of Bill? Commissioner Richardson?
I wasn't suggesting that we raid the fund, okay?
Yeah, we just cash it.
I'm just pointing out that there are that much money in reserves. I mean, our general fund isn't all cash either, quite frankly. I mean, no one is suggesting we spend all of our general fund. The point is that we have those cash reserves, and any proposals I make today are not suggesting any additional transfer from that fund from what has already been suggested. But the amount of money that actually we never see is very small, because in the end, people don't allow their property to go to foreclosure. They find a way to pay the taxes. I mean, we're talking about, what, 15 pieces of property a year out of how many parcels do we have in the county?
55,000.
Well, there's 50,000 or more.
So out of 50,000 parcels, only
5,000 go delinquent. So.
5,000 go delinquent, but only 15 actually get foreclosed on every year. or less. So,
Fortunately.
what?
Fortunately, in our county.
Well,
that's
fortunately,
happening.
yeah. Well,
Downstate, it's a different story.
Yeah, but when we are talking about Grand Traverse County here, so. All I'm suggesting is that we not be afraid to recognize that that cushion exists and, is there,
Yeah, and the bonding, when we do have to go out and borrow, the bonding agents do recognize that we have this available, and it could be used. It's not that it can't be used, and they do recognize that, and they give us credit for having this excess funds in this fund with our bond rating.
All right, good. Commissioner Henschel.
Thank you, Bill. In response to Commissioner Maxbauer's first question, she asked, how do commissioners feel about using fund balance? How many years now has it been that we've used fund balance in a row?
3?
3 years now?
At least 3.
I think it's 3, that we've budgeted every year since I've been here, but I think the last 3 we've used it.
Okay.
Last year, did we use it? Yes, we did.
2 years.
when you say the last 3, you mean counting 2012?
No, it'd be, no, that would be
9, 10, and 11.
9, 10,
I believe.
11.
We use fund balance in 9
Yeah.
also?
And so in other words, we budgeted every year, but in those years, we actually used some of it.
Okay, so
And we had excess in our fund balance that was within the range of 18 to 20% or slightly higher than that, so that's why we made that adjustment. And the other part of the rationale behind that is that there was some hope with at least the past boards that, we did not know how long the recession and how revenues would be affected in our market compared to other markets within the state of Michigan, because we've always been in a growth market and we've always had growth every year. And so it was a way to bridge ourselves over several years to help save jobs within Grand Traverse County. And one of the main purposes behind a fund balance is to provide a cushion, so when you do have up and down years, you're not you're hiring and then firing and then hiring and then firing. You have a means to bridge over a certain number of years with a certain cushion, and that's what the concept was over the last 3 years, is that as long as we stayed within the 18 to 20% of expenditures, that we were going to provide that as a cushion to help save positions within the county, and hope for a better year the following year. So, and then we're just taking it year by year.
So for 3 past years, we've spent more than we brought in.
Correct.
And we're planning to, once again, in 2012, spend more than we bring in. It just, I mean, when you put it that way, it really sounds bad.
Yeah.
That we're still doing it.
Yeah.
But, I was at the Michigan Association of Counties conference last week, and there was an interesting discussion in one of the sessions of, what the administrator in this case goes through when preparing a budget, because if he's too conservative, then we're losing employees that we're just going to bring back next year when times might get better. So I understand why it's been done in the past. I guess, however, if you spend too much, then you're doing it in the middle of the year and then trying to make all these adjustments mid-year. So I guess I'm really wary of spending more than we make, more than we bring in. But I do understand the importance of having staff. But, at some point you got to say, wow, we've done this for 3 years. Are we going to keep borrowing from fund balance, not knowing whether tax revenues are going to increase or decrease? The trend seems to be they're decreasing. So I guess to answer your question, I'm wary of it.
Yeah. And let me remark to that, and then I'll call Commissioner Richardson. I think we're well aware of your feeling and feeling of other commissioners in the past about the use of fund balance and the concept behind the fund balance in terms of covering operations over a period of a couple of years. I think when it really came right down to the end discussion and the end vote, I can only speak for the previous boards, because I was sitting here at that time, and some of us were here, that the previous board felt that, we had at least at a minimum a 2-year expectations of concern with flat or declining revenue, and that as long as we stayed within the 18 to 20% of the expectations of our CPA firm and Standard & Poor's to maintain our bond rating at a AA, which happens to be one of the top bond ratings of counties in the state of Michigan, and we've got a fully funded delinquent tax fund, and that we saw that the discretionary part of using the fund balance, like I said, as a bridge, hopefully for better times. And we understand that at that time, there was only a certain length of number of years we could do that. Last year, the previous board voted to take the fund balance and split it between 2 years, assuming we had a 2-year, we knew we were going to have at least a minimum of a 2-year problem, and take $625,000 for the 2010 budget, and then $625,000 for the, the 2011 budget, and earmark $625,000 for the 2012 budget to bridge us to 2013, and then we would based on Dean's analysis, that would take us pretty close to the lower end of the range of the 18 to 20% fund balance target that the board had passed as a resolution. So I think the board was aware that, there's only so much we can do in terms of using the fund balance over a period of several years, and at a certain point, when we reach the point of 18% of expenditures, then the fund balance is not going to be used for operating purposes. So that was just some basic information and some rationale behind the previous board's decisions and thinking. So, but I understand completely what you're saying is you can't rely on fund balance forever. And we could take it below 18%, but it wouldn't be good. I wouldn't recommend that. And I want to maintain our solid standing in terms of Standard & Poor's and our ability to bond not only for local townships and the hospital authority and those kinds of things. So I think it's important that we maintain our structured reserves, so we maintain our current bond ratings, because technically I don't think we can increase our bond rating more than a AA, because we would have to have a significant number more of population and a larger market to get beyond a AA. But that was kind of the rationale behind it. Then I'm sorry, who was next? It was Commissioner Lemkool.
Yeah, Chris, I think, we all agree that we don't want to spend money that we don't have. But also, I think it's a fine balance to how we look at our budget and what we need to provide for services for our community.
Okay.
And that is basically a rainy day fund. I personally, as long as it doesn't go below the 18%, I don't really have a problem doing it. But I really think that that's the threshold we have to look at. It's not so much the threshold how much we're going to spend, but as a philosophy from our board that we should be telling the administration, do not ever put a budget before us that's going to take our fund balance below that 18%, or is it 18.5 or something like that? Whatever that is.
18 to 20.
I think it's 18 to 20, but never go below the 18%. And so that we can provide the quality of services that we need to provide for the people in our community. And I think that's the key part of it. And it's a real balancing act as to how we provide those services and what services we provide and how much money we pay for them. Those are the discussions that we need to be involved with.
Okay, and then Commissioner Gilman, are you all set? I'm sorry if I skipped you.
All set.
Okay.
The treasurer took care of it.
Okay, Commissioner Richardson?
Commissioner Lemkool is right. It is a rainy day fund. If these aren't the rainy days, I don't know what they are.
Yeah.
And obviously we have to be, anyone who's run a business knows that you have to be very careful about your cash flow and all that, but there are going to be days and months where you may not make as much money as you hoped, and you have to, maintain reserves to cover those days. Just a couple points, and I'm going to keep hammering on this tax revolving fund. If you take the tax revolving fund and the general fund together, what you see is the general fund balance has started to decline, but the tax revolving fund has started to go up in the same time frame, and what you end up with actually is a level line. A level line of about $20 million in reserves overall. And of course, the other thing that's happened since the budget has been cut, that 18 to 20% number is actually a smaller number than it used to be.
Right.
So, I mean, we're not actually aiming for as high a target as we once were.
Okay. Any other discussion about tax revenue? And I know that we've hit somewhat on fund balance. And before we get into the discussion, I guess the meat of the fund balance, because it's already been started, Dennis, I want to make a disclosure to, I guess, an understanding for the board and for the members of the public, that if I understand this process correctly, that even though this is a special notice of the Board of Commissioners, that any vote on any areas within the budget would be considered technically tentative. I don't know if that's the right word, because we do need to, after our budget deliberations and recommendations, we do need to have a public hearing that would be scheduled for the third Wednesday of October, and that would be October 19th at 7 p.m. And that's required that we do have another public hearing regarding the 2012 recommended budget by the Board of Commissioners. And at that meeting, based on public comment or public input, as well as commissioner input, you know, certain items could change, and they have had in the past. And then there's a vote to move that forward to the board meeting in October, which we were required to adopt our budget at our last board meeting in October of every year for the next fiscal year, and that would be October 26th at 7 p.m. So, Dennis, if you could help me, if I did not explain that correctly, could you?
No, you have it correct.
Okay.
The budget that we presented you is kind of the base budget. It's
Okay.
now the time over the next budget hearings for commissioners to make amendments to that. So any amendments that you may make today by vote, it is a direction to staff to amend the budget and change it so that the one that we present to you on October 19th at Ways and Means for the public hearing is the one that has been prepared with the changes that you as a board have made. And then you still can make changes that day, and then the final budget goes to the board the next week.
And that would be the final vote for the adoption of
That's
the
correct.
12
That's
budget.
correct.
Okay.
But as you know, I mean, throughout the year, then we make changes to budget.
Budget adjustments throughout the
Exactly.
year through our Ways and Means process.
But it's important that we adopt a budget by the end of October to give our departments time, the 2 months to plan and staff, to
Okay.
do the work of next year.
Okay, I just wanted to make that disclosure to the public and to the members here, sitting here tonight. Commissioner Richardson, did you have something? And then I'll call on
I just
Commissioner
want to
Maxwell.
clarify what
Yes.
you and Dennis both said. So
Yes.
in other words, even if an item is voted down in this meeting.
Correct.
We don't have to go through a reconsideration motion to
Correct.
talk about it on October 19th.
Correct.
You're giving us direction as to what to do to the budget, and you can change that.
Thank you.
Correct. Commissioner Maxbauer.
Well, I'm going to just touch on use of fund balance one more
Okay.
time, and then I'll be done.
Okay.
My concern, and Commissioner Richardson is exactly right, it's a rainy day fund, and these certainly are rainy days. But I have said for years that this is going to be long-term, and I think that the numbers are proving that I've been correct in that these rainy days are not going to be, the sun isn't going to be shining anytime soon. I really would like to see the board take a look at reducing the $625,000 down to about $300,000. Now, I understand that and that's primarily because I think we're going to have to use fund balance again in 2013. And we are only going to have approximately $100,000 left in fund balance before we hit that 18% threshold. And I don't want departments to experience draconian cuts. I'd rather, spread the suffering out over a couple of years. That's my personal preference. But I understand that staff might not be able to do that. And I also understand that with 2 commissioners missing, there might not be support for that.
Right.
So what I'm going to suggest is, after we have our budget hearing, I'm going to ask that we take a look
Okay.
again in 2012 and see if we can't find, I can see, I don't see joy on Dennis or Dean's face, but I really think we need to find another $300,000 to reduce our 2012 budget. And that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, and you can inquire, and we can discuss, deliberate, and make a motion at the, I believe, after the public hearing at Ways and Means on the,
Well,
on the
I
19th.
hesitate to do it with 2 commissioners not
Yeah,
here.
and that's,
So I will,
that's very considerate, I think,
All right,
for
I
you
will-
to do that. Okay.
I'm done now. Thank
And-
you.
And just knowing that, we've got 2 other opportunities to do things. Okay. Does anybody else wish to speak on the fund balance? Okay. Well, thank you for that recommendation, Commissioner Maxwell. I think that's an excellent recommendation to defer that item to after the public hearing on October 19th. We will now move on to the Conservation District, and Commissioner Max Bauer, you have the floor on that.
Thank you. I am concerned with the amount of cut that we are giving the Conservation District. And I am also a believer that we should not be asking Dennis and Dean to find the money. We need to find it ourselves. So what I'm going to propose is not purchasing 8 picnic tables for $7,500 for Twin Lakes. We've gone this long without 8 picnic tables. I think we can go one more year without picnic tables.
Okay.
And direct that $7,500 to the Conservation District budget. The other, another $1,500 I would like to have come out of the pool fund. Now, I will tell you how I am arriving at that $1,500 figure. We have not raised group rental fees for the Civic Center pool in a good long time. And the Parks Board is recommending, actually the Aquatics Director made the recommendation to the Parks Board adopted it, that we only increase fees to group rentals, full pool group rentals, by 2%, and everyone else, all the members, at 5%. I did a little math, and the Aquatics Director was kind enough to email me and say, we've had 513 hours in 2010 of full pool rentals. Well, if you do the math, going from a 2% increase just to 5% increase like everybody else has is $3 an hour. I don't think the Coast Guard's not going to rent the pool for training over $3 an hour, nor do I think anybody else is. So what I'm suggesting is, well, I'll make the motion. I move that we eliminate $7,500 from the capital improvement budget that was designated for the 8 picnic tables at Twin Lakes, and we recommend, or we direct staff,
Reallocate that.
we direct staff to increase all pool fees at 5%, and that $9,000 be given to the Conservation District for their budget.
I'll second that.
Okay, can I clarify that the...
Please do.
Yes.
Please help me.
All right, we got the $7,500 that's
Yes.
it's in the capital improvement fund that has been designated in 012 for the purchase of picnic tables
Yes,
for the Parks and Rec budget.
yes.
And the $1,500 for
If we-
leveling
Yes,
Is that
if we...
$1,500?
That's what it'll amount to.
To
Yes,
level
just
everyone
take...
off to the same rate
Yeah,
of increase?
but let's have everybody have a 5% increase. You know, it's $3 an
So-
hour. I just think that this community gets so much good out of the conservation
And the
district.
conservation district fees annually are $9,000?
Well, I'm proposing we give them $9,000.
Yep, that's what was cut,
All right, 9,000?
Yeah.
from
We didn't-
39 to not, to
right,
30.
Give them their cut then.
Okay, it was moved by Commissioner Maxbauer and seconded by Commissioner Henschel. Okay, discussion on the item. Dennis, did you have a remark?
I think Commissioner Lemko does.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Lemko.
Yeah, I have a problem with taking it out of the pool fund. I think that, I'm not sure that we can set rates here. I think that has to be a Parks and Recreation Commission situation. If I was going to say that we would take $1,500 out of the Park and Recreation, I could probably support your motion. But to take it out of a particular fund that's operated by another Park and Recreation Commission, which we've appointed those people to, I think we're stepping on their toes and trying to tell them how to do their business.
Okay, and then let's go with Dennis Loy and then Commissioner Richardson.
I would say that in response to that, I think Commissioner Lemko is correct that the fees are set by the Parks Board, but I think what you could do to accomplish that would be to increase the revenue from that line item by $1,500, thereby requiring them to go back and look at their fees in order to generate that extra $1,500. Now, that would be no guarantee that they would raise that to 5, but you could also send along a message that the board thinks that should go up to 5 like everything else, and then it would be up to
I'm
them.
certainly willing to amend my motion
Okay.
to what Dennis just recommended.
Let's follow through with discussion, then we go back to your, then I will call on you to see to amend the motion.
Christine, your motion has way too many moving parts. I'm sorry. There's like 3 different motions in there. And honestly, first of all, you're talking about taking the money out of Parks and Rec. I mean, Parks and Rec has taken the biggest hit in terms of general fund spending of any department in this whole county. The Parks and Rec Commission, of which you're a member, I do believe, voted this summer to raise pool fees, didn't they?
Not for group rentals.
No, not for rentals, but they certainly would have discussed it. They did. My point is that they raised fees already. That's their job. Why would we reach in there and direct them to specifically do this, that, or the other thing? I mean, they obviously looked at it. They have more information than we do. On the third part, I'm absolutely a strong supporter of giving the $9,000 back to the Conservation District. I can't figure out why it was, taken out in the first place. So it's not like they've had big increases every year or anything. But I wish you would find a way to, either revise or amend your motion, because I will not vote for it as it is.
We'll
right
go
now.
with Commissioner Gilman and then Commissioner Henschel.
The picnic tables, that is a Parks and Rec line item ultimately, right? And so is the...
And it's in the capital.
It's in the capital budget.
But they're going to make up for it one way or the other, or...
They didn't weigh in on the capital budget that I
Didn't weigh in.
recall.
Well, there were capital requests that came in, and usually for parks, they come in from the parks manager to the facilities department, and then we meet with the facilities department and look at each facility and what the requested need is and make recommendations from there.
Okay, so the money but otherwise, though, essentially what you're saying is we're going to take $1,500 from Parks and Rec and let them figure out how
Fine,
to make it work.
Well,
fine.
but I don't think you are. I'm
But-
maybe missing it. I think what you're saying is you're going to add revenue to Parks and Rec, unless you're going to take their appropriation down by $1,500,
No,
which I think is
no,
what Commissioner Lemko was suggesting.
I
Well,
think,
that's the only way the motion makes sense.
Yeah.
Is if you tell them to increase revenue, because you're going to take $1,500 out of their appropriation.
And not allow the transfer of the
Yeah,
$7,500.
exactly.
let me withdraw my motion and start over.
Does the second agree? Who second?
Second
Does second
agree.
agree? All right, so the motion is off the floor.
Okay, I'll try again. Okay, I'm going to start and do this in sections. Okay. I would move that we eliminate the $7,500 capital expenditure for 8 picnic tables at Twin Lakes and appropriate that money to the Conservation District.
I can support that.
All right, it's been moved by Commissioner Maxbauer, seconded by Commissioner Lemkool to change the recommendation in the 2012 budget for the capital improvement fund, remove the distribution for the $7,500 for picnic tables and redivert that to the Conservation District. Discussion. Commissioner Richardson.
We keep talking about money and availability of money. We had this discussion in our previous budget meetings, and I said I had found the money that covered all the things I want to do. I mean, I don't know if they're going to pass or not, but and what I'm specifically speaking about is $438,000 that was transferred into the capital improvement fund this summer, last month, basically to make the bond payment next year in 2012 for the road bonds, which is fine. I thought that was a good idea. It's great, have that money. However, the budget, as proposed, still has $438,000 being transferred out of my favorite, the tax revolving fund, to the capital improvement fund, specifically to make the road bond payment. Well, we're not going to make 2 payments next year. We're only going to make 1. So, as far as I'm concerned, that $438,000, which is being already budgeted to being transferred out of the tax revolving fund, which is a good thing, I think it's great. I think that money should be transferred immediately, directly into the general fund. I'm not making a motion right now, but my point is that if we transfer that $438,000 into the general fund, where it evidently is more needed than the capital improvement fund because the money is already in the capital improvement fund for the purpose for which it's intended, then we can kill a whole bunch of birds with one stone. All these little bits and pieces we're talking about, $9,000 for Conservation District, we're going to talk about TC Talus later, we're going to talk about $2,000 for Fireworks Fund, and as Commissioner Maxbauer has already brought up, she thinks that we should have $300,000 more in the general fund. Bingo, one fell swoop. So I will vote against the motion. Not because I'm opposed to voting money for the $9,000 for the Conservation District, but I don't think we need to penalize Twin Lakes to get it.
Okay. Can I call on either Dean or Dennis on that analysis regarding the status of the transfer of the delinquent tax fund or the holding of that for the 2-year bond payment?
You want to do it?
Yeah. Go ahead.
If you have your tax revolving fund analysis in front of you, under the 2011 column, the last item under transfer outs is $438,188. That is the amount that Commissioner Richardson is discussing. Bill had budgeted for that in his 2011 budget for the tax revolving fund. We did a budget amendment within the last 2 months to transfer those funds to the capital improvement fund to advance fund 1 year's worth of our 50% share on the road bond payment. So it is in the capital improvement fund. That budget amendment went to Ways and Means. We certainly did not hide that. There was additional revenue that was available, and Dennis and I felt that the best use of that money was to make sure we had our commitment under that 2008 bond issue covered, and that allowed us to do that. The 2012 budget does have 1 year's worth of debt service in it as well, and so the fund balance when we close 2011 and the CIP fund will have the 2013 payment in it. That's in a nutshell what we've done.
To add to that, when the special committee was set up earlier this year, to address the $700,000 shortfall in tax revenue, one of the things we discussed with the committee was this idea of using excess tax revenues from the tax delinquent fund for the purpose of paying off a financial commitment that was finite in length. So we talked with you about the idea of using it to pay off the 2 years remaining on the road bonds. And the theory behind that was simply the money may be there, excuse me, or not be there in future years. And these were two things that we knew the money was there for, and we could pay them off, and we wouldn't have to rely on it year after year after year. So that was the theory behind this. And Commissioner Richardson is right. Technically, there is an extra $438,000 in that. We're suggesting that that be put into the fund to pay the 2013 road bonds so that road bonds are completely paid off.
All right. Commissioner Henschel and then Commissioner Maxbauer.
Thank you. With all due respect, Commissioner Richardson, I really appreciate the time and effort you went into to try and find some more money in the budget. I respect that. On the other hand, it's not the sort of fiscal policy that I can support. It's like we've charged up a balance on a credit card, and, well, we have the opportunity to pay it off, but instead we're going to just keep on rolling with spending is how I feel about that, respectfully. I don't think taking money I think we need to pay off our debts, as staff has recommended, because that'll help our cash flow long-term. The other thing about, how many times, how many years, how many budgets can we try to patch this hole out of those funds? We don't know if they'll be there in the future, and that's my concern.
All right, then we have Commissioner Maxbauer and then Commissioner Richardson.
Well, my motion had nothing to do with the tax revolving fund.
I understand that.
My motion is to not buy 8 picnic tables for 2012 and to appropriate that $7,500 to the Conservation District.
All right. Okay, Commissioner Richardson.
Nah, never mind.
All set?
I've said enough.
Okay, I guess Commissioner Richardson, you just sort of made a point that I hadn't thought about, and that is, when we take a look at the remaining number of items that are smaller dollar in nature compared to the larger dollar in nature of the custodial services, I guess the question I have for staff at this point is the budgeted amount that we have for miscellaneous contingency for the 012 budget is how much?
For the general fund, it's 100,000 even at this point,
100,000. All right.
which is consistent with the 2011 amount, which you have used $7,500 to date.
Okay. So that certainly is a source of availability for, if not that, this particular item, other items that are before us tonight. I just want to make that remark.
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Yes.
One thing I would ask you to seriously consider is, as we talk every year about the budget, as we tighten or remove any excess in the budget, obviously we increase the possibility that additional money will be needed for unforeseen expenses.
Right.
So I would strongly encourage you, and I think Dean would agree, to at least keep $75,000 in that contingency. That's what you had in there this year. And you've been very good. I mean, we haven't had to spend it, but I would just ask that you try to at least keep that much. It's a very important line item for unexpected expenses.
Okay. So question for Commissioner Maxbauer regarding your motion. That would leave $1,500 difference.
I'll make a motion after this one.
All right. For the differential. Okay. So, all right, we have a motion on the floor to divert or not fund $7,500 for, under the Capital Improvements Fund for the 7 picnic tables.
8.
8?
8 picnic tables.
All right, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
And that $7,500 would be reallocated to the Conservation District membership fee, and the remaining amount is yet to be discussed. All right, any other discussion?
Question.
Commissioner Henschel.
Have these tables already been ordered?
No.
Okay.
No, this is a next year appropriation.
Oh, it's a next year appropriation. Okay. My other question was, is next year's Conservation District fees, TC Talus fees, and whatnot, something that can be paid out of this year's contingency fund?
I would say, this is just my opinion, I would say Perhaps smaller appropriations, fireworks or things like that could be. But with 4 months left or 3 months left in the budget year, I would hesitate to recommend that you pay any $10,000, $20,000 numbers out of this year's money, just because we don't know what we might come up against here in the next 3
Yeah,
months.
and I'll go to Commissioner Richardson as soon as I make this remark, if I could. I had the same exact thought on other items in the previous budget year, and said, well, let's just take that and pay it for next year. And thinking I had a great idea, just as you have eloquently spoke, and then I went to Dean, and I think Dean said there's some counting rules where you can't reallocate, you can't hold or allocate for the next fiscal year. You have to put that differential into the fund balance, and then what you would do is the following fiscal year, you would have to pull that portion out of the fund balance and then fund that line item. Is that true? Is that what the explanation I had gotten?
In a roundabout way, yes. I mean, you...
In a roundabout way.
Well, Dennis's explanation is the best one that I would offer. There's quite a bit of our fiscal year left. You could have the ability in December to look at year-end balances or what, how we're tracking in terms of the overall budget. In those cases where you have appropriated money and have not made the expenditure, technically that does or would increase your fund balance if, the budget, everything went according to plan. It hardly ever does, because you don't realize 100% of your revenues and you don't hopefully expend 100% of your expenditures. But if something that was planned was not expended, in theory, that should add to your fund balance, which would mean you'd have to budget it in the subsequent year. A better approach is if you have the available funds and you can advance fund something, we have to write the check to have an expenditure. To carry small dollar amounts forward through fund balance is not wise.
So if you have an issue, for example, the fireworks request, if the board feels they want to do fireworks next year, but they can't seem to find it in next year's budget, they could appropriate money out of the contingency this year for
December.
X number of dollars in November, December, and cut the check now for next year's expenditure.
Okay,
So,
all right.
and this board has done that
Okay.
for probably 7-8 years. You've done that in the past.
And what's left in our contingency for this year?
I think
92,500 at this point. You did budget earlier this month a small amount, 7,500 for the Veterans Affairs relief line item. The budget was 100,000, and that takes you down to 92,500 in your contingency.
We have 92.5 in our contingency right now?
our contingency was 75,000. You sure? Okay.
Oh, wow, I
Yeah.
didn't know we had that much. Commissioner Richardson?
Don't get real excited.
Which brings us back to this year's
All of a
fund
sudden, I'm
balance.
getting excited. Okay.
And yes, it's projected use of fund balance this year is $625,000, and everybody's all concerned about that, as we've heard from this end of the group here. But, so there's like 90,000 we haven't spent in our contingency. There's, Dean just sent us a report that the child care fund is trending $150,000 more positively than budgeted. And that's up from what he even estimated the month before. And even the reports we got at August Ways and Means showed both increases in revenue and reductions in expenditures, again, from what was budgeted. So, of course, Dean's not going to make a guess. Actually, he did make a guess. He said, I think we'll come in at what was projected. That's like him saying, we just found $500,000, okay? So, obviously, we won't know the numbers until the end of January, but we have to make decisions now.
All right.
So-
Any other discussions on the motion on the floor?
Well, I have to clarify that. I don't think, when he says we're going to come in at what's projected, he means spending fund balance that was budgeted this year. He doesn't mean we won't need the fund balance. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, that's statement of, I don't remember everything I said, but that would mean that we're going to use $625,000.
That was my
balance.
point, Dean.
Yeah.
My point is you saying we're going to use $625,000, you being willing to say that much, as conservative as you are, which I appreciate, I really do, is like saying we just found $500,000. That's my point, okay? But I mean, you know, we
Matter of
can't- I mean,
semantics.
don't get me wrong, we can't put it in the bank, but you know
Yeah.
what? We can't put any of this in the bank.
Yeah, it's all semantics on that part. Okay. All right, does everybody understand the motion on the floor? Or does anybody want to repeat it? All right, we take the picnic table allocation from capital improvement fund, 7,500, allocated to Conservation District. Roll call vote, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I apologize for that. Yes, sir, we may have that. Thank you for reminding me.
Bob Donick, 1708 Comanche Street, Traverse City. Believe it or not, I was paying attention at the last budget meeting because Mr. Lemkel, I believe, brought it up. Why were these picnic tables so expensive? That's because they're for handicapped folks. So what you're doing is you're taking picnic tables that handicap accessible, and you're saying you don't want to put them in the budget now. Now, also, I thought we were going to item by item because I will hold my other questions for Mr. Henschel and Ms. Maxbauer about fund balances. I thought we were going to be able to speak on each
I
item.
apologize, I thought if it was going to be an
Well,
action,
you don't have
vote-
to-
if it was going to be a motion on the
You don't
floor.
have to keep apologizing, Larry.
Yeah, that's okay, but yeah, that would be fine. But you can speak on all three if you
But
want.
here is something that is handicap accessible, and now you're going to take it out of the budget. Now, we want our parks for everyone, and everyone would be people with handicaps. Thank you.
Okay, did you have any other discussion you want to have on tax revenue or use of fund balance?
Sure, while I'm here.
Yes.
First of all, I got real confused when Mr. Henschel saying that we are going to be borrowing money from our fund balance. It's all taxpayer money, Mr. Henschel. I don't see how you take it out of your bank account, you put it into your checking account. I don't see how that could be borrowing money from, it's all taxpayer money. And my question to you, Mr. Henschel, and to you, Ms. Maxbauer, because you're talking about the fund balance, when is a good time then to use the fund balance? Never? Rainy days? I would appreciate an answer to.
Yeah,
Obviously, Mr. Gilman has an answer for me, but I didn't mention his
yeah,
name, but that's.
and
Thank you.
yeah, and public, just so everyone knows, public comment is for your opinion, and it's not meant to be a Q&A back and forth situation. Okay. I apologize. My intent was to, if there was a motion on the floor or any action items to be taken, then I would take public comment. Thank you so much for reminding me. But now that he's reminding me, does any member of the public have any comments regarding tax revenue or use of fund balance or the Conservation District motion that's currently on the floor? Okay, thank you. Okay, everybody understand the motion? All right, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Henschel?
Yes.
Lemkool?
Yes.
Richardson?
No.
Thomas?
Yes.
Maxbauer?
Yes.
Gilman?
Yes.
Inman?
Yes. Okay, motion passes with 1 nay. And again, that's a preliminary recommendation. There are 2 other opportunities for discussion on that item. We will now move on to...
I'm not done yet.
Okay, oh, we have a second part to that motion, I'm sorry. Commissioner Maxbauer.
I would make a motion that we increase the revenue line item in, a revenue line item in Parks and Rec by $1,500 and appropriate that money to the Conservation District.
And in turn, reduce the appropriation from the general fund by $50.
Yes, thank you.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved by Maxbauer, seconded by Henschel, to increase the revenue section of Parks and Rec by $1,500, and that would
Reduce the general fund
reduce the general
appropriation.
fund by $1,500.
And that
Transfer
general
it.
fund would, appropriation would go to Conservation District.
Okay. Discussion, Commissioner Richardson.
I find it interesting that Commissioner Maxbauer doesn't find her seat on the Parks and Rec Commission enough to direct Parks and Rec Commission policy. This is Parks and Rec Commission policy. We know they've already discussed raising fees, and because of budget cuts that we handed them or insisted on, they have already gone through and found a lot of ways to raise fees, and yet even that isn't enough. And so Commissioner Maxbauer comes back here and says, we should tell them again what to do. So again, I will not vote for this motion either.
Okay. Is there any other public comment, or excuse me, comments from the commissioners? Commissioner Lemkool.
Yeah, I guess, I have a hard time trying to tell a committee what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing when we're appointing them. If we're going to continue to operate that kind of an operation, then we should disband the Parks and Recreation Commission completely and take it all under our responsibilities. And then we could be starting to set all these rules and regulations. One of the things that I had talked about in the previous was that we stop buying new vehicles and start looking at used vehicles. So we have it in there that there's a van that's supposedly going to be used for our group that's going to be doing all the repairs on the for the county, and they got a van that's only driven 4,000 miles a year, and we want to buy a brand new one. And I think that there's other monies in there, and I think what I would rather see us to say, I would rather put the $1,500 more back into the conservation district and tell the administration to figure out how to find it, rather than us trying to figure all these little idiosyncrasies in there. I understand what you're trying to do, Chris, but I really feel that we're trying to micromanage what we have our administration to do, and I have a problem with that.
Yeah. Commissioner Henschel.
I actually have the opposite problem, Commissioner Lemkool. I've watched these guys. I've watched Dennis kind of drag into work each day as he's trying to get this budget going. He put himself into this process, and I don't think it's fair for us to say, you've got to come up with more after he went through all that without suggesting where it would come from. I think it's appropriate that we say, well, we should spend less here so that we can spend more here.
Well, we could be doing the same thing with facilities and doing all these other kind of things if that's what you're going to do. So.
Well, if you think facilities should be cut by $1,500, by all means,
No, I think it should be more than that, but.
We're not there yet.
Okay. All right. I have a comment. Yes, we do have a motion by Commissioner Maxbauer, seconded by Commissioner Henschel. I guess my comment is that, we've had a joint meeting with Parks and Rec. They do have, and we have given them, I guess, a set of written guidelines that provide certain requirements of them that we've asked them to execute on our behalf. And I understand where Commissioner Maxbauer is coming from on this, and they have addressed it, and I feel bad enough to pulling the $7,500 out of the capital improvement fund, but that's our fund and that's our decision. It's not their decision, so I don't have hard feelings about that. But in terms of the additional $1,500 that we'll need for the conservation district, we can always make a suggestion to Parks and Rec to revisit the matter, but I think that I would prefer to have at this point the $1,500 come out of if they're unable to, if Parks and Rec is unwilling to change the recommendation that Commissioner Maxbauer has made in terms of that it should be across the board, which I agree with her on that. But I guess as it stands right now, I guess that we should be prepared to have that $1,500 coming out of the this year's contingency fund. We got 92.5 left. Is that what you indicated to me?
Yeah, no, yes,
All right,
you could
okay.
do that.
All right.
I thought you were going to say next year's contingency
No,
and then put
this
it in
year's
next year's
this
budget.
year's contingency fund. That the $1,500 come out of that, and I mean, we can always come back to Parks and Rec and say, between now and October, at the end of October, would you reconsider, increasing your fees across the board? But if they're firm on it and they have a rationale behind it, I just soon go with the $1,500 out of this year's contingency. So that's my remark at this moment. And Commissioner Maxbauer.
Well, I'm not trying to, ding anybody. I look at the Conservation District as a part of Parks and Rec. And if you take a look at the, past budgets, it's in the Parks and Rec budget. So I'm just trying to find $1,500 for the Conservation District.
Right.
And I do not believe that burden should be on Dennis and Dean. I think they've come up with their recommendations, and I don't think we should ask them to dig for any more money at this particular time. But if the contingency, if we want to look at it at year end for contingency, I'm happy to withdraw my motion and do that. I'm fine.
So are you?
Yeah, I'll
want to amend your
withdraw
motion?
my motion. Yeah,
You would agree?
I'm going to just be
Okay, do you wanna
confident that we can find that $1,500 before
So do you want
year
to
end.
make a motion to direct staff, or make a motion on the 15?
No,
I'd like to
I'll-
make a motion.
Yeah, I would.
All right, Commissioner Richardson?
I move that we appropriate $9,000 for the Conservation District out of next year's contingency budget for 2012.
Is there support for that motion? I think we've already settled that on the 7,500 recommendation, at least at this
We haven't
moment.
settled anything, Larry. Come on.
I know, we got 2 more meetings. Commissioner Lemkool.
I'd like to make a motion that we appropriate another $1,500 to the Conservation District for the 2012 budget, and we direct administration to figure out where it's going to come from.
Would you clarify that motion to this year's contingency fund?
No, it's not out of the contingency fund. It'll be part of the budget. Just like the
The
$7,500.
011 budget?
No.
12.
The
The 012 budget?
12 budget,
He's directing Dean and Dennis to find it.
to find the extra $1,500.
Okay, is there support for that motion?
Yeah, I'll support it.
All right, it's been moved by Commissioner Lemkool, seconded by Commissioner Thomas, to allocate the additional $1,500 to the Conservation District, and to have staff come back and report, I guess, at our next budget discussion, which would be, I guess, the public hearing part of it, where they would recommend that $1,500 come from. Is there further discussion on the motion? Commissioner Henschel.
Thank you. I'd just like to reiterate, I'm not in favor of sending anything back in the lap of staff. That they've already put their time in and figured what would best serve the county. I would be in favor if we said this year's contingency budget, we're about 3/4 of the way through the year. We've used less than 10% of that fund. If we said $1,500 out of that fund, I'd be in favor of it. But I just can't see throwing another thing back in their lap, saying, just figure this out.
I think there's room in this budget for them to find that. Otherwise, I wouldn't have said that.
I guess my closing remarks is the same as Commissioner Henschel. I just soon ask staff to pull it out of this year's contingency fund and transfer to next year. Okay, any member of the public wish to make any comments regarding the Conservation District funding and the motion on the floor? Okay, hearing none. Does everybody understand the motion? Motion is to allocate $1,500 out of the 2012 budget
With us to find it.
with staff to find
Could I make one comment?
the amount. Yes.
You know, the Conservation District is part of the fundraising effort that's going on this year called Swing Shift. And part of that, so, that's the dance thing where they all, I think we ought to consider making this appropriation contingent on Lou dance during the program.
Lou was there last Friday and did it. He was already twinkle-toesed up there, so.
All right.
So, and he'll be there next, the 21st
Okay.
of October.
I will vote no on the motion because I agree with Commissioner Henschel. It should come out of this year's contingency fund and not leave staff in a loop. All right, roll call vote, please. And the motion is to move forward to 1,500 and let staff figure it out in the 012 budget.
Commissioner Limcool?
Yep.
Richardson?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yep.
Max Bauer?
No.
Gilman?
No.
Henschel?
No.
Inman?
No. Motion fails 4-3. Do we have another motion? Commissioner Henschel?
I move we allocate the remaining $1,500 out of this year's contingency budget.
Okay, is there support?
Support.
All right, moved by Commissioner Henschel, seconded by Commissioner Max Bauer to allocate the $1,500 differential needed for the Conservation District membership fee, and it should come out of our contingency fund for 2011. Is there discussion from the board? Is there discussion from the public? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Richardson?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Max Bauer?
Yes.
Gilman?
Yes.
Henschel?
Yes.
Limcool?
Yep.
Inman?
Yes. Well, gee golly, we
I
got
got
an unanimous vote.
There you go, Lou.
Commissioner Richardson.
Talked about 8,000.
For the record, I think we just spent 35 minutes on $9,000.
$9,000, yeah.
At that rate,
Yeah.
I think we'll get the 2012 budget adopted probably by the end of 2014.
Well said. Okay. We now will move on to TC Tallis, and Commissioner Richardson, you have the floor.
TC Tallis is a valuable part of what we do in collaboration with other units of government, including our own road commission, including the city of Traverse City, including many, if not all of the townships of Grand Traverse County, including Elmwood Township, the Leelanau County Road Commission. This is the only regional transportation planning that's going on in the region, and we have supported in the past, and I, for the life of me, cannot understand why it was removed from the budget. And so I would make a motion that we appropriate $18,000 for TC Tallis for 2012.
I'll support.
All right, we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Richardson, seconded by Commissioner Lemkool.
The appropriation is 18,000
Even.
even?
That's my motion.
Appropriate $18,000 for TC Tallis for the 2012 budget year, of which we normally get the billing, I believe, sometime in June. Is there discussion on the motion? Commissioner Lemkool and then Commissioner Max Bauer.
Just remember the 7 Ps. Prior proper planning prevents pitifully poor programming. We need it.
Okay. Commissioner Max Bauer.
Well, I will not support the motion for 2 reasons. One is you're basically not directing staff where to find the money.
I already found the money. You don't choose to recognize it, but I found the money, okay?
And
But
it's
you-
not,
you can make
it's
it part
not,
of the motion.
it's not in your motion.
It's a general fund appropriation. It's a general fund appropriation.
Right.
There's a
Okay.
general fund, spend it.
Okay.
What more do I have to say?
Does the second agree that that's the agreement with the motion?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. That'd be general fund. Okay. All right, go ahead, Commissioner Max Bauer.
Thank you. And I would not be willing to fund TC Tallis until I see a strategic plan. I want to see what we're getting for our money. And I think there's been a question of what we've received for our money in the past. And before I would vote to appropriate 2012 money, I would want to see the strategic plan. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Gilman.
For several years, we have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, not necessarily all county money, but there has been hundreds of thousands of dollars spent in the TC Tallis program to manage a little over $1 million worth of projects. Not money well spent, and frankly, I don't think we should participate in it anymore. Now, the argument as far as the road commission is concerned, and I should note that we do have a letter here from the road commissioners, minus the chair, in support of TC Talus, is that becomes their planner. Well, they can hire a planner, and they can hire a planner part-time, if so needed. I don't think TC Talus serves a viable function for the county to have further investment in it, frankly.
Commissioner Henschel.
Thank you. My same concern is that our staff has already gone through months of establishing the recommended budget, and without showing them where you expect them to take this money from in the motion, I cannot support it.
Okay. Any other commissioner comments before I speak? And I'll try to get Commissioner Thomas back here before we do the vote. As you know, or maybe you don't know, the previous year, no, it was this previous June, wasn't it? Yeah, it was this last June, I believe. They came because we got the billing. Is that correct? Commissioner Richardson?
Can I comment on this?
Yes.
We appropriated the money for TC Talus last year as part of the budget.
Okay.
There was no reason why we were even voting on it in May. But because Jason Gilman, who up to that point was a member of TC Talus, decided that planning was a waste, transportation planning was a bigger waste, and so he started opposing it. There was no reason why it was even before us, because we had already appropriated the money. We had already made the decision on the budget. We don't sit there and vote every time, the sheriff pays a deputy. That was all part of the budget.
Okay. Right.
So the only reason that this became an issue was because it was put on the agenda unnecessarily, and Commissioner Gilman decided to make an issue about it.
Okay. Any event, in June, we did have a discussion on TC Talus, and Matt Skeels did come in and explain that they were going to go through a strategic planning process in terms of their role. And, they were the principal active body for the Grand Vision. And the next question comes up as to, what is next for them to do. They were kind of conceived, I believed in the past, with the assumption that we might become Metropolitan Planning Commission based on certain population requirements and those kinds of things. And the discussion, I believe, in June was to move forward with the budgeted amount, and that they would come back when they did the strategic plan, and we would have a discussion about whether TC Talus would continue on as its present form, whether there would be a different format for regional planning for the community, or whether there would be a different entity that would do that. For example, the Northwest Michigan Council of Governments, or whatever. And we were looking forward towards that report. Now, I don't have a problem voting for the appropriation, getting it in the budget, but I would like to have TC Talus, when they complete their strategic planning process, at least advise us as to how they see themselves and how they see themselves going forward, and as a general courtesy, because things change, life changes, and planning changes, and organization changes, and those kinds of things. So, we can stick it in there, but I would like to have that presentation made before we actually cut the check. But whatever.
Larry?
Yes, Commissioner Lemkool, and then Commissioner
I think
Henschel.
that's an excellent point, and maybe we put this in the budget on the contingent that they will provide us a plan before they get that money. Would that be all right with you, Ross?
So they'd have to have the strategic plan done by October 19th?
No, it would be
Before they get the money next year.
next year. But they
Yeah, that's
normally
fine.
go
I mean, honestly, I'm the one who's been pushing them to develop a strategic
All
plan.
right,
But I
all right.
just think that if we just put it as part of our motion,
Put it in the budget, and then let's hear the strategic plan.
and then by the plan, then we can put the money into it.
So upon our reception of the strategic plan, then the money will, then the bill will be paid.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'll amend my motion.
Okay,
Thank
does
you.
the second agree with that?
Yep.
Okay. Is there further discussion from the board? I can't remember who had their hand up
You had
first.
me
Was it
next.
Lemko, or excuse me, was it
I'm not
Maxbauer?
fussy.
All right, let's go with Maxbauer and then Henschel.
Okay. We're asking staff to find $18,000 without any suggestion, any idea where it's going to come from. And I have a real problem with that. I don't happen to think transportation
Not there.
planning is,
Not there. There it is.
I don't think transportation planning.
Let her go. Go ahead. You have the floor, Commissioner Maxbauer.
You would, apparently not. I don't think transportation planning is a waste. But I will tell you that I think we've gotten more and better transportation planning from Tom Menzel and Beta than we have from TC Tallis. I still don't know what I've gotten for all the money, or taxpayers have gotten for all the money that they've put into TC Tallis. I'm not seeing results. So yeah, I want a strategic plan. No, I do not want to put another $18,000 burden on Dennis and Dean. I think that's completely unfair. If you want to spend $18,000, and put it in next year's budget, I think you need to already know where it's going to come from.
Okay, Commissioner Henschel.
I just respectfully wanted to clarify that earlier this year, we chose not to fund a payment to TC Tallis. And that was not because Commissioner Gilman said it was a bad idea. It was because the majority of the Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners, duly elected, seated in a meeting, the majority chose not to cut the check. It was,
Whoa, wait a
not-
minute.
we did
We
make a
passed it
payment.
and you voted
did.
for it,
Yeah.
Commissioner
We
Henschel.
did pass.
I just want to clarify that Commissioner Gilman does not control the majority
I understand.
of any meeting. And you're just, the way you
No,
the way
I
you
was
said it-
just explaining
So,
why it
excuse me,
became
have
an
the floor,
issue.
Commissioner.
I was just explaining why it became an issue.
Excuse me, have the floor. I just wanted to clarify with respect that it was not Commissioner Gilman by himself that stopped the payment. It was the majority at that meeting. Thank you.
All right, and then Commissioner Gilman, then Commissioner Richardson.
I would agree with Commissioner Maxbauer. I don't think transportation planning is a waste either. However, I think that it's more efficiently done if it's in-house where the transportation is being taken care of. And I think that on a part-time basis, I think they could certainly manage their affairs. I mean, the road commission is spending $36,000 a year, and they're part of the budget for the TC Tallis. They could bring the person in-house half-time for that. So I don't think it's necessary for us to be involved. And it could save a lot of the other parts of the community a lot of money as well, when they're paying their per diems and salaries to their people who are going to these TC Tallis meetings.
Okay, any other, oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Richardson.
No, let's just
Well, I
vote.
wanna
We have
hold
a
for-
lot of stuff on the agenda.
All right, I know, but I want to
Public
call for
comment.
Commissioner.
Public
Well, okay, well, I'll just
I'll hold for
briefly comment, because my initial comment was about the collaboration. And this is a collaboration of MDOT, City of Traverse City, Grand Traverse County, the Road Commission, any number of townships, all contribute varying amounts of money to TC Tallis for the services, mostly for the services of Matt Skeels, who the Road Commission considers their road planner. So this is a collaboration effort.
Okay. Does any member of the public wish to speak on this matter at this time? If you do, come on up, state your name and address. Try to keep it within 3 to 5 minutes if you could.
Mark
3
McKellar,
minutes.
Vice Chair for the Grand Traverse County Road Commission. I think that sets an ugly precedent, folks. I think that you got to question why you have a county planner and why you want to go it alone. I don't believe that shows a sign of collaboration, at all. We got all the other municipalities that are involved in this. I understand budget constraints. We went through a terribly tough budget process ourselves. I would think that you would want to be participating in the overall program. You know, we're working with Northwest Michigan Council of Governments from the regional perspective. At this point, TC Talus can't provide a strategic plan because it's being developed as we speak. By June, well, long before June, I would hope that we would see it at the road commission and at the county level and at the city level. The TC Talus is undergoing a change that is unprecedented from when it started. We're revisioning ourselves, you might say. We do have the support of the Grand Vision as well. What we're trying to do is move forward together. I understand it's a budget issue, but when you look at the budget and you look at an investment, we can't afford to go it alone. The county can't afford to go it alone. If every government entity here chose to go it alone, we'd have an ugly mosaic worse than what we already have. Been looking at the roads up here for 2.5 years. I think we're on the right track. I'd like you to seriously consider what you think about where you want this to be in 5, 10, 15, or 20 years out. So that's all I really had to say, but I really appreciate your consideration. I think Matt Skills does a fine job. And collectively, we can afford them. Individually, we can't. And it's community-based, too. And you're welcome to the table. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other member? Yes, come on up, John, and state your name and address for us. Good.
John Nelson, 4022 Incochi Crest Commons. I'm one of your road commissioners. I also sit on TC Talus as a citizen at large. Commissioner Maxbar, I'd just like to point out a few things that did come as a result of TC Talus in the planning process. A some $600,000 road project in Buckley is ongoing and almost completed. A $200,000 to $300,000 project on the extension of Frankie Road, which came as a direct result of the Grand Vision and a planning process. A $5,000 project on a signage, a wayfinding project around the Beitner, Keystone, Hammond 3 Mile Road project, a direct result of planning from TC Talus and the Grand Vision. Tom Menzel's not here right now, but I think he would tell you that they went through a strategic planning process and saved thousands of dollars on consulting fees because the data that was collected through planning and TC Talus and the Grand Vision was already done for them. The consultant said, thank you for doing this planning because the data's there. We don't have to do it. Those that attended the Grand Vision planning report to the community last night at the State Theater saw Kellogg money that came as a direct result of TC Talus and the planning project of the Grand Vision. $20,000 to Kalkaska, $20,000 seed money to Beulah, the town of Beulah, $20,000 to Mesick. I can't think of all of them. Suttons Bay, $20,000 Kellogg planning grant to Suttons Bay, which leveraged $1 million for their M22 and Front Street corridor and stormwater. Now that's just a few of the projects, direct result of planning and TC Talus and the Grand Vision project. So I just wanted to point out some of those, and I only touched on a few of them. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other public comment regarding TC Talus? Okay, I guess the only comment I have regarding this item is that my comfort level is with the motion, and that is to fund it for 012 contingent upon the review of the strategic plan before the membership fee check is issued. and that we have set up, how much in the contingency for 012? 100,000?
$100,000.
Right, okay. And that, assuming that we go through that process and we do approve that, keep in mind, we do have that contingency available, hopefully at that point. Any other further discussion before we take the motion, or the vote? Commissioner Gilman and then Commissioner Henschel.
The Buckley project was the result of about 72 hours of scrambling around trying to figure out how to spend some money that was going to go away in a couple of days. It certainly wasn't priority. It certainly wasn't planning. It was how to spend that money before it goes away. That's what happened. And Commissioner Richardson was there. He knows. They spent a great deal of time over a weekend knowing that an earmark was going to be pulled, and they had to figure out how to spend it in our community with the shovel-ready project. The project itself didn't have anything to do with Talus planning. So to claim that it was a part of the Talus thing was only because the part of it was the money that was essentially banked for projects in Grand Traverse County. So as far as a successful planning venture, I disagree.
Okay. Commissioner Henschel.
Chairman Inman, are you suggesting that this money will come out of the 2012 contingency fund?
I would say that that would be an option for the commission to review at the time that they do the strategic planning presentation.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Yep, but I appreciate the clarification. So we have a motion on the floor to allocate $18,000 for the TC Talus membership fee for Grand Traverse County for the 2012 year, contingent upon a presentation by TC Talus on their strategic plan to the Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners before the membership fee would be distributed. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Max Bauer?
No.
Gilman?
Absolutely not.
Henschel?
No.
Lemko?
Yes.
Richardson?
Yes.
Inman?
Yes. Motion passes 4-3.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just for clarification, I asked the county clerk to let us know what was required in terms of number of votes in order to pass a motion in this instance, and she consulted with Bob Cooney and indicated that it takes 5 votes.
To
Pass a vote here today.
I move for adjournment.
What is the rationale behind that?
Linda might have it. I
It's
don't.
not a motion to reconsider.
Seated commissioners.
That was that it was a motion to amend the budget, and that's why.
We have not approved the budget. This is just a discussion on the budget.
The wording that was proposed to me is amend the budget.
All right.
It was a motion to amend the budget, and that's what I communicated to Mr. Cooney. But I'll be happy to.
Can we do a 10-minute recess so we can have a discussion with council?
I feel like I've been wasting my time.
Sort of.
Well, you've made a motion on this. My suggestion would be, let's get a clarification from Mr. Cooney. You can take further action on it if you need to. Leave this issue and move to the next issue, and we can come back to it if we need to come back to it. If he says it only takes 4 votes, then nothing else needs to be done.
Yeah, because we have not, my issue with that is that we have not approved the budget, so we are not amending the budget.
I agree with that interpretation.
So it does not require a 2/3 vote.
Let us get a further clarification. Linda, if you could just see if either Al or Bob could
Yeah.
come over.
Can you indicate that we have not approved the budget?
What was communicated to me was it was an amendment of the budget. and that's
We're not, the budget hasn't been approved, so we're amending the recommendation.
Could we take
Okay.
a 5-minute break?
And let's take a 5-minute recess if we could. Thank you.
I know. I can't move.
We can keep going? Oh, boy. Look at Dick. Oh, boy.
We can get everyone to have a seat, and we'll start here momentarily.
It takes 6.
Okay, we are coming back from recess from the Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners special meeting regarding the 2012 budget. We have, in the interim of the recess, we have had a discussion with our civil counsel, Bob Cooney, and clarified the matter of the procedural process that we're going through at this point. And we have not approved the budget. This is merely staff, direction to staff to help prepare them for the actual final budget that we want to present to the public, for the public hearing, and for a final vote for the County Board of Commissioners. So the 2/3 or 6 votes does not apply, or the 5 votes do not apply, or the majority of votes.
A majority of those
The majority of
present.
votes apply to the vote. So the 4-3 vote on the TC Talus stands as approved at this time. All right. We will now move on to custodial services. And Commissioner Richardson, you have the floor.
We could go on about this for hours, and
I know.
I think we've already had plenty of discussion. I just want to make a couple quick points. Most politicians at all levels are saying, and have been saying for the last year or more, that it's all about jobs. It's all about jobs. We need to find ways to, create jobs. We need to find ways to keep people in their jobs. That's what this is. These are not great jobs, but they are jobs that people have held and have held for a while, so they must be able to support themselves with these jobs. This whole move to privatize these individuals is nothing more really than just saying, you know what, we can find a cheaper way to, we can find people to do the same job and do it much cheaper, so we should act on that. And that the job that they're doing somehow doesn't merit the same benefits that we give all other county employees. All 500 county employees get these benefits, but if we can privatize it, then we can take these benefits away and find somebody to do it cheaper. There have been no complaints about the service they have provided. They seem to be well respected by the people whose offices and work areas and buildings they're cleaning. We obviously are going to have to do the work. It's not like, well, we don't really need this work done anymore. They haven't become, obsolete in some fashion. Somebody's going to have to clean these buildings. And there are also questions about whether or not whoever we hire to replace them will do as good a job as what they're doing. So, but mostly, I think, the main reason that I have been, as strongly in favor of retaining these individuals as I have is because it's the right thing to do. We shouldn't treat people like this. We shouldn't treat our employees like this. I mean, again, if they were doing a lousy job, or, they're all standing around because we had 6 and we only needed 3 or something like that, that'd be one thing. But that's not the case. They've honored their side of the contract. We're not honoring ours. So I would like to make a motion that we restore the cost of the 10 custodians and the 1 custodial supervisor to the budget and pay for it out of the general fund.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to restore the custodial staff of 10 plus 1 supervisor and have that funding coming out of the general fund. It was moved by Commissioner Richardson, seconded by Commissioner Thomas. All right. Discussion on the item. Commissioner Gilman.
To take it out of the general fund essentially means that at some point we're going to have to take it back out of our workers in some other way. The work that staff has done has frankly been exemplary. Their mission was to find the best way to provide the services that need to be provided and at a cost, at a value that's sufficient. And I'll tell you, I'll speak to the administrator's commitment to the employees. You know, this is not something that I think he does lightly. This thing's been on the table for 3 years, and I don't think he's taken it lightly. In fact, yesterday, in defense of some employees of the county, he made it to a meeting that he wasn't even aware of until that day, in defense of their jobs. And he spoke up in defense of their jobs, and I'd like to at least acknowledge that. And that's something you're not going to see on the news. So I think whatever he's recommending here in the budget, the way that it's been set up, I think it's probably appropriate. And I defer to his decision to at least seek to contract out those services. We can't all like it, but every dollar we spend in one way is going to be taken away in another, and it's going to cost somebody somewhere. We're just trying to manage it the best way, and I think that the administrator's done a fine job, as fine as he could do anyway.
Okay. Who else had their hand up? Anybody?
Are you going to do a public comment on this?
I want commissioner comments first, and then we'll do public comment. Commissioner Lemko.
Yeah, and, you know, most people have heard what I've said before, that contracting is the way we should be doing. Most of the buildings in our community are all cleaned by contractors. There's a lot of businesses in our towns that we are supported because they are being contractors. And it is an opportunity for us to save money from our budget, yes, but I'm hoping that whoever we decide to have the contractor will hire our employees. You know, I think that that's one of those things. I've toyed with the idea that, you know, we take and put part of our savings that we would retain from the employees and give it to as a bonus to whoever the contractor is, to increase the salaries for those employees. You know, I'm not sure what the response is from our fellow county commissioners on that is, but it's just another way of being able to kind of minimize the impact. You know, I just really feel strongly that we should be contracting out for cleaning services for our buildings. Our job is, you know, it's providing jobs for our people, but it's not totally providing jobs for people in our community. It's providing services for the people in our community. And how we provide those services is the discussion. And right now, the discussion is, should we be having our own custodians cleaning our buildings, or should we privatize that and contract it out? And I think that is fiscally the best way that we should be doing it.
Okay, Commissioner Maxbauer.
These jobs are not going to be lost to our community, regardless of which way this vote goes. When, you know, if we had done this last year during budget time, over a 3-year period, we would have saved approximately $500,000. Well, how can you turn away from a savings of $500,000 when you've got income projections like we've seen tonight? We have a responsibility, in my view, to use taxpayer dollars in the most effective, efficient way possible, and also have is a minimal impact on the public we serve. And I think this falls into that category. So I will be voting against the motion.
Okay, Commissioner Henschel.
With the passing of the last motion, I kind of feel like this board is on a spending spree of just adding things back into the budget without saying where the money's coming from, except for Commissioner Richardson respectfully did have a suggestion, which I disagree with, of basically taking money out of a fund that's not intended for that purpose. But where's the money coming from?
Okay. Any other county commissioner comments? Commissioner Richardson.
I just wanted to say that the money that I suggested doesn't have any intended purpose, okay? I was intending a purpose for it, which was to the general revenue fund instead of the capital improvement fund. So it didn't have an intended purpose until somebody said, well, we should do it this way or that way. I was just suggesting a different purpose than what someone else had suggested for the money, because the purpose for which the money had been suggested had already been taken care of.
So if this motion passes and we don't make any other accommodations, then it would just come out of fund balance?
Well, everything comes out of fund balance.
Right.
I mean, all the money goes into the fund and all the money comes out of the fund.
You would just have to make an appropriation.
Okay, and then you
for
just
the
look
delinquent
at,
tax fund.
you just look at cash flow, just like a business. How much money you got coming in, how much money you got going out.
My concern is that we would drop below the 18% level that we've established.
Well, actually, we're at, if you throw in the tax revolving fund, as I feel we should, I hate to keep having this discussion.
That's where you and I disagree.
We're at 55%. So,
Technically, you'd have to make a transfer from the delinquent tax fund into the...
There was already a transfer from the delinquent tax fund into the capital improvement fund to pay the road bond payment.
You're right. It would
But
have to be
that's
a
already
transfer.
been taken care of.
Right. It
We
would
already
have
have the 2012 road bond payment
Right.
sitting in the capital improvement fund, ready to go. Not till next September, but it's ready to go.
Yeah.
So we don't need to appropriate another $438,188 into the capital improvement fund to make the road bond payment, because we've basically already allocated money for that. It's just waiting for the day that it's called upon. And all I suggested was taking that $438,188 and putting it into the general fund instead.
Oh, okay. All right.
That's all I'm doing.
All right. Commissioner Thomas.
Well, the first thing, Herb, how can you take the money you save and give it out as a bonus and say that you saved anything? That doesn't add up very well.
Let me answer
I'm
that.
not done.
I was going to answer, but go ahead.
Well, I guess it was just a dumb question to what I thought was a dumb answer, but the other thing is that nobody's proven to me that we're going to save a nickel yet. We've got a known amount here that we're paying people to do a good job. They've always done a good job, and now you're going to say, oh, we can do it better by, we'll hire the same people back. Well, I don't know about that, but whoever they hire, are they going to do a better job, or are we going to end up paying more for it? There's just too many questions for me, and I've been assured that it's going to be cheaper. Well, okay, show me.
Okay, I have a...
Dalton Thomas.
You want me to answer that question?
You can if you want.
Go ahead, Commissioner Lumko.
In the budget for 2012 is a very minimal savings. Most of the cost goes toward unemployment benefits. And if we take some of that cost out of there and give it to the custodians, that was what I was looking at to be able to do that. The other thing is there's a $7,000 calculation in there for a bond, which I don't believe is necessary that we even need to have, so that's an additional savings. But, I'm not making that as a motion, that we do that. I just threw it out there that that's something that could be worked out into this kind of a situation. It's up to management to decide whether or not they want to do that. That's it's part of their budget process,
Okay.
too.
I have a question of Dennis. As a part of the proposed recommendation budget for that line item, has staff done Has staff selected one of the vendors?
We are ready to make a recommendation. If the board continues with this recommendation in the budget, we'll be bringing you the proposed award of bid in October.
Okay.
At RMA.
All right, has staff done a background on the current customers that are being served by the companies that bid?
We have checked references, yes.
Okay, and those have all checked out?
They have.
Does part of the bid that, that we sent out, is that all inclusive, or are we going to find a situation where that wasn't part of the bid and we have to add that, you didn't put that in there, but now we got to add something else like?
We believe that everything that we currently are doing and anticipate the company will be doing is included in the bid requirement.
Right.
And so we believe it's apples to apples. We work very hard to make sure of that, including the frequency. We are going to, if you continue to go down this road of contracting, we are going to ask you for permission to negotiate with the company because we believe there may be further savings that we haven't been able to account for. So, yes,
Okay.
The answer is we've done that.
My question, I guess my other question, if I may, is the suggestion of taking, I think what Commissioner Richardson has suggested is that we would take the one year's worth of payment for the road commission payment, road bond payment, and use that for 012 to fund the custodians for an additional year. My question to you, and I guess Dean and/or our treasurer, Mr. Rokas, do we see that as a sustainable possibility for ongoing years, or is this just a 1 year, we can just use it for 1 year and then we're going to be right back next year talking about the same thing all over again?
I'm going to try to give you my perspective on this,
Okay.
and then we'll ask Bill to do that.
Okay.
At the risk of creating more controversy about the issue. I don't feel, and I think Bill agrees, that we cannot, with a goal of having enough money in that fund to self-fund the delinquencies, and the present situation with the economy being what it is, we are not comfortable in saying that the money will be there in an ongoing, year after year after year. And so we knew we had about $800,000, $900,000 in hand that Bill had identified, above the normal amount that comes out of the tax delinquent fund go into the budget every year. And we thought it most prudent and conservative to look for short-term expenses that we know will go away. That's the reason we didn't look at funding things that have to go on 3, 4, 5. We didn't want to be in a position in the 3rd, 4th, 5th year saying, well, we're back in the same place we were in 2011 when we looked at 2012 and there's no money. And so that's the thing. I don't know what kind of money is going to be in that delinquent fund that's excess. Now, let me clarify that. I'll say it another way. There's clearly money if you're willing to go bond the tax delinquencies, you have $12 million there that is available to be used. Now, but let me take you down a little quick history lesson. It used to be that if you had that kind of money in the bank, you still bonded because you were able to sell these bonds as bonds that were tax exempt, and you would make money off of that. That may not be called arbitrage, but it's something like arbitrage. The federal government came in and said you can no longer do that. So we sell those bonds, we sell them as taxable bonds, which means we don't get the same good interest rate. Bill tells me you can still do that. You could do that right now. You could say we're just going to keep that $12 million there, we're going to go borrow it. It's up to the treasurer, but you can do that, and he says we probably won't lose money in the present situation. But we're making an assumption, and this is based on what Bill has recommended, that we want as a goal to keep enough money in that fund to be able to fund the tax delinquencies ourselves. If that assumption is correct, by the board, or the board agrees with that assumption, then I don't feel comfortable projecting that that money will be there year after year after year, and that's why we made recommendations where we knew the cash was there and it was a 2-year commitment and it was over. And I guess I'll ask Bill if he has anything to add.
You're welcome to come up, Bill,
Come on,
if you'd
Bill.
like to speak on that issue. Then I have a final remark, and then I will go to Commissioner Gilman.
The only thing I'd like to add is, since I've been treasurer, initially this fund had a 0 fund balance when I came here. And the only thing that we've been doing since then is we've been appropriating to the general fund what the general fund would receive if we didn't have this fund, because the county doesn't have to have this delinquent tax fund, but it definitely is a win-win for the local units to get their tax money current and not have to wait for delinquency. In addition to what we've been transferring to the general fund, we've also transferred funds, but those funds that we've been transferring out of this revolving fund since I've been here, for most all the transfers that have come out of this fund have been strictly for capital type expenditures and not to build into this fund, that we're using this fund for operations, other than the portion that's been allocated that if we didn't have this fund, the general fund would receive these type revenues, which is the collection fee and a portion of the interest that's earned in this fund on the delinquent taxes. Those funds have always been identified and transferred to the general fund for operating purposes. Anything in excess of that has typically been allocated for capital type expenses, and that's one of the reasons why when we identified this roughly 900,000 last year, and this, the combination of those 2 years, was that we identified some capital expenses to relate to that transfer, which was why it was related to the road debt payment that's coming up.
Bill, what my explanation, was there any parts of it that I misstated or that you don't agree with? I would appreciate it if you'd let the board know.
No.
Okay. If I can make, unless you have a question of the treasurer.
Actually, if the payment that the revolving fund made to us, and I guess it's for both of you, if that was not made, where would the bond money for the road bond money, where would that come from?
General fund.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Bill? Commissioner Richardson.
I just want to clarify one more time, because this is rather confusing, but all I'm suggesting is taking money that is already in the budget, appropriating out of the tax revolving fund to the capital improvement fund to pay the road bond. Since that money is already allocated for the road bond, I'm just saying, one time only, we take that money and put it into the general fund.
And that
Same amount of money.
is doable.
And that is no difference in what happens to the tax revolving fund, no difference in what happens to the road bonds.
Right. Yeah, that's okay. Thank you, Bill. I guess my comments are as with every budget. I'll tell you. I've been here for 19 years, and I've watched the county continue to grow in population, and we've been probably one of the most fortunate counties in the state of Michigan where we have continued to see both residential and commercial growth during my tenure on the county. And every year we bring in budgets, and we have increased revenue, and we have more people moving up here. It's a beautiful place to live, and we've had to support the growth by increased programs and services in all areas of county government. And when you're adding positions and creating a much larger base of staff and employment, and making sure that we weren't on a continuous basis, making sure that we were in line with counties our same size as we continue to grow, and made adjustments moving forward every year. not to the point we were the highest or the lowest, but we want to be competitive in the middle, somewhere close to that. We did that for just about every year and outside of the last 3 or 4 years. And it became very painful and I can only speak for myself, and I'm sure other commissioners feel this way. It's very painful to be in a situation where we continue to be in a state of, over the last 10 years, growth in population, and our primary source of revenue has been property taxes and some state and federal funding and fees. And other counties in the state of Michigan have had a lot of them have had relatively no growth or lower growth, and they have suffered greatly sooner than we have. And if my trips downstate to Lansing for my meetings, you pick up newspapers, and on the way up you stop for gas, you pick up newspapers, and it was just a horrible story in the paper about people's jobs being let go, and because of the economic situations that got hit hard for those counties. And we were one of the fortunate ones that we built up our fund balance, and we were able to try to save as many jobs as we could over the last 3 years using our fund balance, as well as making some adjustments in personnel. And I think in 2004, I could be wrong on the year, we had to eliminate 20 positions.
22.
And last year we eliminated 10, I believe it was? 9. And those are very painful to do, especially for me, because I was here during the times that we added those positions. And we always wanted to have the best environment for our employees and to be competitively paid and to have a good working environment and good communications and a clean, nice environment, and have people say great things about the employer of Grand Traverse County, retention, those kinds of things. And we had the best of all worlds, to be honest with you, for a long time. And it's extremely painful to see that not only have we gained in population, but we've had a continued spike down over the last 3 to 4 years in revenue due to what I did not expect was the hard-hitting effect that Grand Traverse County would get, because we are probably the most desirable place to live in Michigan, in my opinion, and the most beautiful area to live in. And I never thought we would get to the point as an elected official where we would be faced with a position of continued growth but lower revenues, and the difficulty of making decisions about having to let people go. And those are very painful situations to go through. And we did it in 2004, and we did it last year. And we have to cut $1.5 million out of our budget. And that's including a $625,000 fund balance, of which will not be available in all likelihood next year. That means, I'm sorry to say, we're going to bridge some folks in 2012, but in 2013 we probably will be faced with another series of cuts in the reduction of staff. We're getting right down to the bone of people, and that's the only way we can save money. And it hurts me. It's very painful to make those kind of decisions. It's a terrible time for an elected official to be in government. It's probably a terrible time for the people working in government, the fear of losing your job and finding another one and trying to stay in the area and making those life change adjustments. I just couldn't, I can't imagine a family trying to go through that. And staff has made a recommendation for a certain area for cuts. And if we don't make that recommendation, we're going to have to go find, 10 more people that are working here in Grand Traverse County, most likely, that we will have to cut. if we don't go with the one-year funding out of the delinquent tax fund. And next year, we're going to be faced with a hole of $625,000 that we have in the fund balance, which we do not want to take our fund balance below 18% of our expenditures. And unless we find a remedy legislatively or some other way of saving more money in operations, we're going to be faced here next year at this same time with a room full of people with the same looks and the same disappointments and the same feelings as we have here today. And I feel really bad. I mean, I don't want to sit here and almost start crying about it, but, you know, I feel that bad that, you know, we're placed in this position of having to do that. And we don't take this lightly. You know, I'm not going to have a good night's sleep, you know, tonight, and, you know, if I move forward with a recommendation. But I just want to let you know that we have done everything we have done everything possible over the last 3 years to save jobs, and as many jobs as we can. And we're doing the same thing this year by doing the fund balance, of which some commissioners disagree with, and hoping for a better year next year, which may not come or probably will not come, because there's expectations of further reductions in assessed values coming from tax tribunal cases and boards of reviews that are ongoing right now that will affect probably the middle of this year and next year's budget. So it's a thing that we have to do because we're elected to do it. We're responsible for a balanced budget, and it's not fair to isolate or pick or choose what departments, because everybody's working at bare minimum levels, and we know that, and everyone's really trying hard to do the best job they can for the county. But it's just painful for me, and I'm sure for other commissioners, to be at this spot here right now today, trying to make a decision about people's livelihoods and our responsibility for having a balanced budget, even though we're going to move some savings over to do it for 1 year. And I just have this terrible feeling we're just going to be back in the same spot, and we're going to have to let another series of people go next year unless we find some real answers. So I just wanted to make those general comments about this whole issue about the custodial services, which really fall in line with the other decisions that we've made in '04 and last year about the reduction of staff. It's just a terrible thing to do, but we have a legal responsibility to find a way to balance out the budget. And so, all right, with that, is there any other discussions from the board? And then I will open it up to the public. Commissioner Henschel.
Thank you. You know, Dennis, to follow up on Herb's suggestion, is it possible, you know, I certainly wouldn't make this a motion, but as a suggestion, we're going to be paying a certain amount in unemployment. Is it possible to offer some sort of bonus to our contracted company for each person that they hire based on some of the savings we would make by not paying unemployment?
Well, I've looked at this, you know, preliminarily. And of course, the unknowns here are what pay and benefit the companies offer. So I guess I'm saying that is feasible, but personally I find it hard to believe that would be a useful tool because it would be very short term. And secondly, I don't know, maybe the people that are in business could answer this. How would a business owner, how would he react if 4 or 5 new employees came on and made, you know, $2-3 an hour more than the 15 or 20 that they were already
I wouldn't suggest that. What I would more look at is if Company X was to get our contract, assuming we move forward with this, and they hire one of our former custodians at like, say, 6 months or 12 months, some sort of bonus just something to encourage them to hire our staff. So
not necessarily at a higher pay.
Correct, it's just
Yeah.
like a signing bonus.
That has much more feasibility, I believe.
Okay.
And Jen and I have been talking about that. In fact, we're seeking to see if that's legal to do. Now, all the bidders were required to commit, and this is just it's more of an intention than anything. They were committed, they were required to sign and commit that they would do what they could to hire our employees if they were laid off. So that's already in place, and the companies we're talking to have indicated, yep, they're open to that idea, and they would look to do that. And so as an incentive to keep them, to hire and keep them, that would be a way that we could look at it. We're trying to find out the legality
And it
of
would
it.
be cost neutral if we could do it, because
It
we're
might
already
even
going to pay.
It might even save unemployment if we could do it.
Commissioner Richardson.
Rob, are you talking about money being given to the employees who were hired on, or money being given to the person who's running the company?
Well, my intention would be that it would be a signing bonus for the employee who took job with the cleaning company, and after, like a longevity bonus for, coming from county, they brought certain knowledge and skills in, the company didn't have to train them, so if they stayed such and such period of time, they would get a bonus for longevity, and basically it would save us money because we're going to pay it anyway in unemployment.
Right.
So we took a portion of that, it would hopefully help people get into other employment more quickly.
Okay, we have a motion on...
That is done within the industry.
Okay, all right. Any other comments from the commissioners before we open it up to the public? All right, now we will open up public comment regarding the custodial services staff recommendation. Come on up, just raise your hand, come on up, state your name for us if you could. And keep it within 3 to 5 minutes or whatever.
My name is Bill Hewitt. I live at 5007 County Road 633. I kind of have a question for Dennis, and I don't know if you said it's not questions, but is this bid, are the privatized company, are they going to change the light bulbs that are 9 foot and under like we're required to do? Or will that fall on the electrician staff?
I can't answer that, Bill. I don't have the bid before me, but basically what I asked Danny to do was put together a bid that would require them to do the same things that we're doing, save for sure the security issue. We've had that discussion that having our people in the building provide us a higher level of security than what a cleaning company would give us. So aside from that, I really can't answer that question, Bill.
We hopefully can get that answered. If there are unanswered questions, I just want to remind everyone, this is a preliminary recommendation for direction of staff. There will be another meeting on October 19th, where the staff members, the public, can give public comment again, and the board can do deliberation again. And then, at that point in time, we would try to make a determination of the budget, and then it would go to a vote on October 26th. So we would have some time to get back to you on that, or staff could get back to you directly on your questions.
If you eliminate us this year, will that then make next year okay, and then there won't be any more people eliminated? We will be that will save this budget, or will it save it for this year but not for next year? I was trying to understand what you were saying there.
And I'd be glad to remark to this, because you people are affected on this thing, but my comment is that we are diverting $625,000 out of our fund balance for 1 year. That brings us down to the 18% of expenditures, which is the minimum amount that the CPAs and I guess the bonding agencies would like to see in terms of maintaining our bond rating. So we've done that over the last couple of years to help bridge people. So with a hope that things would improve and we can keep jobs as long as we can. So the comment regarding the $625,000 is that will not, in all likelihood, be available for next year's budget to add in. So in all likelihood, we would probably, if things remain flat or deteriorated somewhat in terms of revenue to the county, then we would be looking at another series of personnel cuts.
With all due respect, if we are eliminated, I'm a Grand Traverse County taxpayer.
Right.
Grand Traverse County taxpayer, she's a Grand Traverse County taxpayer, and your delinquent taxes will indeed go up. It seems to be the cat chasing its tail.
Okay. Well, we appreciate your comment.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other member of the public wish to speak? Yes, Carol.
Good afternoon. Carol
Good
Stocking.
afternoon.
I'm with the District Court. I'm the court administrator. One of the things that you asked us to do as managers early on in this budget process is to put together a list of programs in our departments, in our court. And we did that. And then you also asked us to look closely at the programs that could potentially be eliminated. I would suggest that the custodial staff is not a program. And I would ask that you look again at this whole process of eliminating them. It's been said that this has been on the agenda for 3 years, and I would ask that you push it off for another year. I know, hopefully, maybe the economy will improve. None of us have looking glasses. We don't know where it's going to go, but what's one more year? Unfortunately for the employees, that would mean that they would have to endure another year of uncertainty, but certainly for them, it would be better than what's being proposed. The savings in 2012 is expected to be pretty minimal because of the unemployment. And so, again, I don't know what the harm would be in pushing off this decision for another year. One thing that has not been discussed is how this decision is going to affect the district court. And I won't speak for the other courts or the sheriff's department, the city police, or the prosecuting attorney's office, but I will tell you with great certainty that they will have the same concern as what I'm going to speak to with regard to the district court. And that is that in the court system, we have access to the criminal justice information system. It's called LEAN. It's the Law Enforcement Information Network. And we have permission granted to us to have access to that system. In order to continue and maintain to have access to that system, we have to we have to go through an annual audit. As part of that audit, it's an intensive audit, and as part of that audit, we have to ensure that, show them that everyone who has access to our secured areas, where lien paperwork can be accessed or lien computers can be accessed, that anyone who has access to that area unescorted has been through a criminal background check and fingerprinted. And my concern is with a contracted company, we might be able to, get 2 or 3 people through the background check and authorized to have access to lien areas, but that doesn't guarantee us that these folks won't let someone in. Someone calls in sick, and they know that they have to clean the building, so by golly, they're going to send someone else who isn't authorized. That really could put us at risk of losing our lien access for future, and we can't do that. There is absolutely no way that we could lock up our lien information. We don't have file cabinets that our file system is open-faced. There's lien paperwork in files throughout the court system. The files are in the judge's chambers, they're in the recorder's offices, they're on the criminal clerk's desks, they're down in probation. There's absolutely no way to lock all that information up. So, as I've indicated, this is not a unique problem that the district court will be faced should you make the decision to privatize the custodial staff. I clearly do not know what we're going to do to accommodate, to fix this problem, and nor do I know whether we'll be able to continue to pass future lien audits. So, to me, you're opening up a can of worms for the district court. And so, anyway, with that being said, I thank you.
Can I ask a
Okay.
question?
You may.
Do you have any idea how other courts that use outsourced custodial, such as Leelanau, how do they handle situations like this?
I can tell you from, in the district court up in Leelanau, they do not have, first of all, they have closed file cabinets because they have much fewer files, and they are locked. They don't have access to the probation officer's office, and there's a barrier that they can't access to where there are files in the district court. So they're kept out of some areas of the district court.
Okay.
Other areas of other courts up there I can't speak to.
Okay.
I have another question, too. How close are we to electronic, taking the paperwork and putting it into electronic form? Because we did pass this. Where are we in that?
You did not pass that for the district court on the criminal side. We're working on the civil division first, and so we're very close to that, but we haven't even approached you for money to do the criminal side.
So we still got another expense coming
You
up
do.
for that.
Oh, plus probate, plus circuit, there's lots more to do.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
All right, thank you for those comments, Carol, and we will follow up on that question on making sure that everyone's cleared if that vote goes through. Any other public comment regarding custodial services? Yes, Judge.
Just to add a couple things. I'm Mike Stepka. I'm fortunate enough to be a new district judge, and I echo Carol's concerns. And I do agree with Commissioner Maxbauer that we need to be accountable to our taxpayers, and also with Commissioner Richardson that we need to value the employees that we have. I've come to know a couple of the custodians who work in our building, and in addition to doing a fantastic job, they also provide a bit of a security service for us. I know of several incidents that Karen, and if she chooses to speak to you, she can relay these to you, that she's reported to the Sheriff's Department during the night when she's working. She's seen a suspicious car, a suspicious individual, and she's come to learn when things are out of place because she's been there for such a long period of time. But the judges share an additional concern, and that is safety and security issues. Our world is changing. We're not immune from the horror stories that we read about in the media every day across this country. There was a courtroom shooting last week in Kansas where someone smuggled in a gun and was looking for the judge, and fortunately the judge was out. Unfortunately, his secretary was there and was shot by the gunman, but the police apprehended him when he was leaving the courthouse. I've done some studies on courtroom violence, and if you do some online research, you'll see that it's rampant. A lot of weapons are smuggled into the courthouse, and as Ms. Stocking indicated, that we lose the security and the safety of our employees when we have contracted employees. You just don't, I don't mean to impugn them, but we trust that they'll be safe, hardworking people concerned about doing a good job. But we do lose that sense of security and control. Carol mentioned that someone could let an individual in during the night who potentially, frankly, wants to plant a weapon in the courtroom. And that's happened. That's how weapons get into the courtrooms. And we deal in our building with some of the most emotional, tense, and sometimes anger-filled cases, those being domestic violence cases, which Judge Phillips handles. And then, of course, upstairs, Judge Stowe deals with the divorce and custody cases. These, when you read the studies, are the types of cases where emotions run high, there's a lot of anger, and those types of cases carry the most potential for a violent outbreak. Just briefly, I was talking to a couple of detectives last week, signing arrest warrants for them. One grew up in Saginaw, and he goes down to Saginaw commonly to visit friends and family. Now, this is just his opinion, but what he's observed is, and I don't want to create a scare here by any means or a panic, but what his opinion is, what he's observed is Traverse City is about 10 years behind Saginaw in terms of the violent crimes. Since January, with the unfortunate incident in Old Town, the media has reported numerous violent crimes that have occurred up here. So Traverse City is not the safe place it used to be. And again, our court handles those cases. So we do have a concern about the loss of control with the contract employees. Carol mentioned a situation, what if someone calls in sick? What if someone suddenly quits who's a contract employee? You can't run someone else through the lien system to get it, on a substitute basis. And I believe that's a misdemeanor, and the company may be liable for that if a particular person has not been through the lien system. Finally, I was fortunate enough to attend the National Judicial College in Reno in early June, and it was a several-day seminar on basic principles of law, that sort of a refresher course for newer judges. Most of the courses were about an hour to an hour and a half in length. But they spent a half a day on courtroom security, courthouse security, and how crucial it is that the courthouses be absolutely safe and secure. And they talked about weapons being smuggled in to courthouses. And of course, they gave us a lot of horror stories that have occurred across the country. But it was such an important topic in today's day and age that they put that time into it. They brought a courthouse safety expert in to provide us information on those things. So I know you have a tough job. I appreciate the tough job you have. We'll live with whatever decision you make, but please recognize that things have become much more serious here in this county, and safety and security, especially in a courthouse. I think we're different because of the people we serve, and the safety and security of those people, of our staff, are of utmost importance, and you can't put a price on safety. So, thank you.
Thank you, Judge, for coming.
Thanks.
Any other member of the public wish to speak at this time? Yes, Mr. Donick.
I'm still Bob Donick, and I still live at 1708 Comanche Street in Traverse City. Before I go into the speech that I prepared, I was taken back a little bit by, hopefully the commissioners weren't thinking about giving a bonus to the company for hiring workers. When the people that, if they were to apply, would be making $4 less an hour approximately than they are making now. And I can guarantee you, and you all are well aware, that these people aren't getting rich working for the county. Before I start there, I have a letter from one of the people, or one of the vendors who bid, and I won't mention their name, but it said, "We would be happy to interview current county employees if they meet our standards and criteria. We would be happy to consider them. They cannot guarantee their hire." I would like to address the so-called savings the county is going to reap from contracting out custodial services. The last meeting, I raised a question that were addressed to you, the commissioners. One being our lower costs based on less service. Mr. Aloya has told the commission and the general public that the staff compared apples to apples. The proposal from the carpet cleaning, hopefully you're going to come back, Mr. Henschel.
Let's get some water.
Okay, thank you. And correct me if I'm wrong, the bid is $17,766 for cleaning the carpeting once. Now the carpets get cleaned as needed, but approximately once a month. We all live in northern Michigan. We know how carpets can get very, very messy when it's wintertime. So I assumed, and I know what assumed does, that the price for one carpet cleaning for all the county buildings, $17,766. Now, if you were to times that by 12, that's $213,000. Let's say it already includes 2 carpet cleanings for the year. That's $106,000, 596. So my question is, where's the savings? My next question, who is going to sit up and take down tables, chairs, whatever else is needed when meetings are held in county buildings? I cannot find this cost in the proposal from the contractors. Our custodians, our friends, our neighbors, whose livelihood you are holding in your hands, are great employees. They do a fine job for this county. They are proud people, and they take ownership in the buildings they clean. Please consider your employees at Grand Traverse County an investment and not an expense. Harry Truman stated that the buck stops here. You, as our commissioners, should set an example to everyone how you personally can save the county money. And lastly, Mr. Lemko, I wish you were around when I was growing up, when my mother told me to clean my room every day. Then you could have told her that would be overcleaning. Thank you.
All right. Any other members of the public wish to speak? Yes, ma'am, come on up and...
Hi, my name is Donna Gonder. My address is 8680 South Schaumburg, Cedar, Michigan. I'm going to kind of ask some questions, but I really don't expect any answers. These are just kind of rhetorical questions, and I decided to write it down so I wouldn't forget. Have you considered that privatized companies have fairly high turnover rates, which means that the likelihood of any one person or persons staying in any given building for a considerable time is unlikely? There are people that come and go at these privatized companies, and me and Karen clean the Hall of Justice, and for people to be coming and going into those buildings, you know, it could be month to month, could be every couple of months, is cause for concern. Judges and employees of the court have very big concerns about this, and I understand that you have to worry about the bottom line, but it seems like that is all you're concerned about. This is a big security issue. We have meetings at the courthouse late at night. We have meetings here late at night. People are going to be coming and going. We know what the routine is here. Mr. Lemko, with all respect, I want to approach the idea of over-cleaning. To be accused of over-cleaning, I mean, to me, especially with the addition of the senior center, I mean, we are doing what we can to get done with what we have now. And we take pride in what we do. And I think, I mean, would it be better to under-clean? Because if we under-clean, the carpets are going to have to be replaced more frequently. And in my mind, that's going to cost the taxpayers more money. We clean the carpeting when we can, as frequently as we can, because I promise you this, salt on carpeting is not a good thing. And to do these carpets twice a year, you're looking at some big spending. So just keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other member of the public wish to speak? Yes, sir.
My name is Kevin Sandbig. I'm a Green Lake Township resident, living in 563 Lost Lake Road in Interlochen. And I am against eliminating our housekeeping staff. I'd just like to add some comments. Carol Stocking, I'd like to add that we will not know who is actually going to be coming in cleaning our spaces. And I think that's important to know who's coming in. The local prison there in Pugsley, they have prisoner reentry programs. Yes, I know they need jobs when you get out of prison, but they could be hired by this company that we're thinking about, and they could be coming into our spaces. So you may have less than ideal individuals, and we have no control on that. Judge Stepka, he mentioned contraband. I'm very familiar with contraband, being an ex-jail sergeant for several years. There's a reason right now why housekeeping staff, these men and ladies, aren't in the jail cleaning because of contraband. Not that we don't trust them, but it's just it's a major issue that all their supplies would have to be checked in, searched thoroughly, and both in and coming out. So contraband, smuggling contraband in is a huge issue. And Judge Stepka's concerns on that shouldn't be taken lightly. I'm a Coast Guard, or former Coast Guard officer. I was a budget officer, supply officer, 21 years. I've been through the privatization process on a few things. I just want to share a couple of things real quick with you. We privatized one of our Coast Guard units, galley, their kitchen, their restaurant, if you would say, at the military base. The shoddy meals that we got after a while was outrageous. The quality went down. Their employees, if they decided to show up to work, to cook for the hard-working men and women of the Coast Guard, was a plus. At a certain point, we decided not to go to the galley. We decided not to eat their meals. So it came to a point where they weren't cooking for anyone. We replaced them real quick with the Coast Guard cooks. Another one is a Coast Guard base. We privatized the electrician office with private electricians instead of the Coast Guard electricians. And again, the quality of work went down. Matter of fact, a huge fire on board a Coast Guard ship was determined to be shoddy work. And that put a lot of people's lives at risk. So privatization is not all that is cracked up to be. I understand you need to, save money, but I ask that you look somewhere else, and let's keep the housekeeping staff where they are. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Any other member of the public wish to speak? Yes, sir.
Hi, Paul Johnson. I'm with Facilities Management for Grand Traverse County. And one thing that I noticed that was mentioned was that in 2005, 22 people were let go. Four.
Yeah.
And another 9 later. It wasn't that we let them go and then replaced them with outside contractors. The work was absorbed, and through attrition we downsized a little bit. And now we're looking at selling out a whole set of staff, but the work's not going away. The work is still there. We're just getting rid of the employees and transferring that money to the public sector.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other member of the public wish to speak? Yes, Midge, come on up.
Most of my prepared notes have already been said by other people tonight, and they've excellent comments, and I hope that you take them to heart. I guess the one thing that I just want to say is it does appear that Commissioner Richardson has shown a possible way of funding this for one more year. And it would make a great deal to these people if you could keep them on one more year. They may be looking at the same thing next year, but maybe not. Maybe things could possibly change or something could happen. These people have been working with 2 fewer people on their crew over this past year. They've taken on the senior center. They've done an excellent job. The buildings, I don't think are as in great a shape as we have seen them in the past, but these people have worked through. They have such a pride in the job that they do, and they like the people that they work with, and they want to do a job in making it nice for us. And I'm not going to say maybe that same relationship would not happen with contracted people, but I think that it would be less likely to happen than with our fellow employees, because the contracted people will not be our fellow employees. These people are hardworking. They do jobs most of us would not want to do. The job market out there is not going to be that good for them. Possibly they could get rehired by this new company coming in. But we all have to realize it's going to generally be at less money and no benefits. I'd like to ask you to be leaders of this community and stand up and keep these people at least one more year. If the money is there, like Ross says, and I believe it probably is, or Ross wouldn't be making these statements at meetings. I think that in these economic times, if things are difficult, I think you should be leaders and show the community that you're willing to stand up for the people that work for you and do what it takes to keep them working as long as possible. Keep them having good jobs in the community where they can be spending their money in the community. I just think that it's important that these people be given the credit that they really deserve for doing the jobs that they have been doing over the years, and particularly this past year with fewer people working and with taking on another building. I think you've got an avenue and that you need to take it at least for one more year. Sure, it's going to be difficult next year if we have to go through this again, but let's address it next year. There's a way to handle it this year, and it appears it's a good way for right now.
All right, thank you for your comment. Any other members of the public wish to comment?
Mr. Chairman, I have a letter that a constituent asked me to read.
Sure.
It's probably a good appropriate time. And these are his words, not mine. I'm just reading his letter that he asked me to read because he had to be out of town today. Commissioners, I read the article in today's Record Eagle regarding the upcoming vote to privatize the county custodial service in order to save the taxpayers $190K a year. Although I can appreciate the fact that nobody wants to reduce staff and disrupt people's lives, the fact of the matter is the county no longer has the money to pay inflated, non-competitive wages. County government should be run like a business that provides services or products at the best cost possible. Any business that ignores this will soon be replaced by their competitors. I realize that county government does not have any competition per se, but the bottom line is that any overspending for services comes directly out of the pockets of the taxpayers. I have seen the same scenario played out in Acme, where they pay an employee who basically maintains township parks and cemetery grounds a salary of $50K plus benefits, and when I suggested that they should at least get a competitive bid from some of the many grass-cutting companies in the area, they refused because of the potential impact to the township employee. They sure don't mind spending taxpayers' money. As a county commissioner, you are to represent the best interests of all your tax-paying constituents and provide the best service for the dollar and not to represent the best interests of the county workers. I certainly hope your vote reflects that position. Not an easy vote, but it is the right vote. Sincerely, Gordy LaPointe.
Okay, thank you. So I want to make sure we have no other public comment. Okay. I just want to also give notice before you speak, ma'am. The meeting was scheduled between 2 o'clock and 6 o'clock. We have an hour left, and it's necessary to adjourn to change out the equipment and get it scheduled for the next meeting at 7 o'clock. And if we don't get through our agenda, we will, the commission, I'm assuming, will reschedule another budget meeting to continue the discussion on the other items remaining in our agenda. So go ahead, ma'am, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Susan
Your name.
Cargos, 4216 Bayview Point. In listening to the district clerk, I have to agree that there are some issues as far as even the equalization department, which is where I work. We do have documents in that department that should remain confidential. And I think I'm going to go back to even my own desk and review what I leave on my desk. Probably not in the best interest to be leaving it on my desk. The other comment I have is Mr. Henschel reading that letter. I have to wonder if all of you haven't received emails and letters in the last few days, and why those weren't also made as part of the public comments.
Mr. LaPointe asked me to read it because he couldn't be here.
Okay.
All right.
That's it.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, I guess I have a question of the county administrator. In previous years or year, there was a discussion regarding the issue of custodial services and the possibility of bidding out. And there was some discussion, and I'm just working on my recollection. And Dennis, I recall some level of discussion about if we do go out and bid, would we structure the bid to the extent that we would retain a certain number of custodial staff for the sensitive areas of courts, the jail, dispatch, and sheriff's office, and then the other areas of the more common areas of the government center, Lafreniere, Front Street, and the senior center, we could potentially bid that out, and it would be less sensitive in nature in terms of security and people knowing, and the comfort level of the people that run those sensitive areas within the county. And I know it's a Johnny Lake question, but is that still a feasible option that we can look at?
Commissioner,
yes.
The history of this is that the county board for several years has, at least some members of the board have been critical of the fact that we have not looked at more options to bid out in the effort to save money. Last year, I recommended, at the direction of the commission, contracting out custodial services equivalent to 6 employees, which would have contracted the services for as you just stated, for the buildings that were non-sensitive in nature, the courts and the sheriff.
Right.
And I believe it even stated that in there. So we bid that out, and it was a potential savings of about $50,000 a year.
Okay.
So yes, it was. It was recommended, and it was the positions were reinstated by the board. My belief is, and I could be wrong about this, I will have to check, but my belief is that we bid this out by building, and as such, you could select certain buildings and just do contracting in certain buildings if you chose. I will have to verify that with Danny Brown, but that's my recollection. That's the way we tried to bid it. The question that I cannot, so I will verify that. The thing that I cannot answer for you is the bid numbers that we received from these companies based on the total volume, therefore bringing the price down, and that I would have to verify.
All right. Well, I personally would like to take a look at that information before we get to the public hearing part of our budgetary process. I know it's impossible to discuss tonight. And whatever way this vote goes, I guess it's been the protocol or the county commission that, if commissioners have questions of staff, that, you could help assist us with it and then copy the rest of the commissioners on it. So I would ask that if you could take a quick look at that for us before we make our final determination.
So I'm assuming you mean...
the information regarding the
I assume you mean
separation of costs.
the courts and the
Yeah.
sheriff, and the prosecutor, is that correct?
If that's the way it was laid out, I just wrote down court, jail, sheriff's office.
We don't have custodial staff that cleans the jail per se.
Okay, all right, okay. So that would be helpful for me to look at?
I'd be glad to provide that.
All right, okay. Okay, are we all done with public comment? All right, go ahead, come on.
One more comment, please. Kevin Sandvig, Green Lake Township, 563 Lost Lake Road, Interlochen. Rob Henschel, Commissioner, I don't agree with what you said. If I know that, if all I have to do is send you a letter, email, whatever, please read this for me at your next meeting or whatever. I wouldn't have to come to these. So that doesn't hold water with me. I got a feeling you read that because it's in line with your views and your vote. So, thank you.
All right. Well, I just want to clarify that every time we get a letter and we are requested by the individual to present it to the board, we've done that.
Right.
In my knowledge, we've always done that.
Yeah, and we've gotten letters, but they've not specifically asked it to be read. All right. Any other public comment? Yes, sir.
I was just wondering if you're going to look at the health building with the new HIPAA laws. You're looking at those others.
All right, okay, all right. Okay, let's bring it back to the commission. We have a motion on the floor.
Could
Moved by Rich.
I was going to ask Bonnie to read it, I'm sorry.
All right, I'll read it so
Please.
she's asked me to read it back.
Okay, that's fine.
Yes.
Just like to hear it.
Actually,
Yeah.
this one, but go ahead.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we have a motion by Commissioner Richardson, seconded by Commissioner Thomas, to reinstate the 10 custodial positions and the 1 supervisor position, and the revenue source would be the general fund, of which Mr. Richardson further clarified that it would come from the capital improvement fund for that one payment, for the bond payment? Is that correct?
Well, I said that was one possible way, but
Okay.
I didn't make that part of the
All right,
motion.
okay, all right, but that was possible, all right, you just made that as information. All right, under discussion, under the motion, I would like to see the breakout between the sensitivity areas and the general common areas before I make a final decision. So with that, we will have a roll call vote, please.
I have a comment.
Oh, you have a comment, I'm
Yes.
sorry. Commissioner Gilman.
Called the question.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, but I do have a comment, and I have...
Well, I called the question.
Okay.
Vote.
Let's have a...
I have the floor right now, you can call the question.
No, he called the question, and when you call a question under Robert's rules, you have a vote on whether you're going to vote
Yeah,
right now.
right.
So you have to ask for a vote, Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman.
Yeah, under Robert's rules, if the commissioner asks for a question, then we have to do a vote. Sorry.
Point of order. I don't
Yes.
believe call the question is an interrupt motion.
He didn't.
It didn't.
I had the floor.
Chairman Gilman
No,
had
you
the
didn't have
floor.
the floor. He called the question before you had the floor.
He wasn't recognized by the chairman.
He called when someone calls the question, you have to have a vote
I
right now
started
on whether
before
or
you
not you're
called the
going to vote.
question.
I'm
I
not just
disagree.
talking to you. I'm talking to Mr.
I have the floor, sir.
No, you don't. I'm talking to the chairman.
Hold on, calm down,
I'm talking to the chairman here.
Yes.
When he calls the question, now we sort of do it informally, and you usually say, okay, let's have a vote. But when he calls the question, you're supposed to take a vote on whether we're going to vote or not. If we want to discuss it further, we'll vote
Okay.
no.
All right.
If we're ready to vote, we vote yes, and then you immediately have the vote.
Okay.
Point of order, Chairman. A call to question only works that way if the motion is recognized by the chairman. The chairman didn't recognize the motion. He recognized Commissioner Gilman. It's not an interrupt motion like a point of order is.
Motion was made hours ago, okay?
It was not
And
recognized by
at
the
that
chairman.
time.
Well, I'll just make a judgment call here. This is an important issue. I'll allow Commissioner Gilman to speak, and then we will do the roll call vote.
If we eliminated a court clerk, a prosecutor, a bailiff, and a judge, and a number of other staff positions that are as a part of the court, that'd save us enough, wouldn't it? And the reason I even bring that up, and I don't want to be funny about it as far as the judge position, we are in a position where this county has been made to fund a court system that the state previously funded. And as a result of that, we were promised revenue sharing monies, if I'm not mistaken. The revenue sharing has since gone away, and that the promise has not been fulfilled. We have a situation where we are funding the courts and the cleanup people for the courts without compensation from the state to do so. Well, the point is, perhaps it's time we, as well as the other counties in the state, make it a point to give the court systems back to the state. We don't worry about the court systems and let them fund their own custodial services so they can feel safe with themselves. But then it's not our responsibility if we're not being paid for it. Perhaps it's time to take it out of the budget entirely.
All right. Is everybody ready for a vote? All right, we're going to do a roll call vote. Everybody understand the motion? Motion is...
I'm sorry, once more.
Motion by Richardson, seconded by Thomas, to reinstate the 10 custodial positions plus the 1 supervisor position, and the money would come out of the general fund. All right, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Maxbauer?
No.
Gilman?
No.
Henschel?
No.
Lemkool?
No.
Richardson?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Inman?
No. Motion fails. 5-2, and we'll hopefully have some additional information on the custodial breakdown at our next meeting. Moving on to the TART Trails funding.
Well,
Commissioner Richardson, you have the
I'll
floor.
try to make this quick, but,
right.
you know, sure how that goes. TART Trails the county has been appropriating $10,000 a year, more or less, every year for the last few years, to TART Trails to help with maintenance of the TART Trail system. The amount in the budget this year is $2,300 and some change. Is that correct, Dennis?
Yes.
Okay. What I am suggesting is that we increase that by $10,000, and let me explain. Not all of the money previously appropriated has been spent, and it has accumulated in a TART Trails fund. It's about $50,000 now. So what I'm suggesting is we take the $10,000 extra that I would like to see go to TART Trails out of the accumulated fund, and then just, and then hold with the budget recommendation of the extra $2,300. And the reason for this is that the TART Trail system is now getting old enough that it is starting to require more maintenance. Most of the maintenance is done with volunteers. I know one of the items last year that they fixed was a whole section of bridge along behind the state park in East Bay Township. Money was used to purchase the materials, but actually volunteer labor from the TART organization was used to actually do the work. So all I'm asking is that we take $10,000 of that $50,000, add it to the $2,300 that's in the budget, and just write it into the budget that way. It will not cause any more money from the general fund or any more money to be appropriated out of taxes.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
All right, moved by Richardson. Is there a second? Hearing no second, motion dies. So Dennis, just a clarification, we have the $2,300 for the TART trail is or is not in the budget?
It is. We have annually appropriated $10,000 for this purpose. We've done it every year.
Right.
We have approved, and when we gave you the budget, we give you a general fund recommendation.
Okay.
Okay? We give you a general fund recommendation. The TART trail is not in the general fund, and our intention was, when we present you a final budget and we make the technical changes and add all the other funds, our intention was to have a $10,000 appropriation out of the fund balance for TART trail, because it's consistent with what we've appropriated every year. Every year we replace a bridge, we replace something else. So I guess all I'm telling you is that that is staff's intention. When we bring you a final budget, our intention is to bring you a $10,000 appropriation from the TART fund balance, because every year we spend that amount either repairing a bridge or a piece of the trail or something like that. But you wouldn't have seen it in this budget because this is just general fund.
All right, Commissioner Henschel.
Move to approve staff's recommendations regarding the TART Trails funding.
And that would be to?
Take $10,000 from the fund balance in the TART fund and appropriate it in the TART fund.
I'll support.
Okay. Moved by Commissioner Henschel, seconded by Commissioner Maxbauer. Is there a discussion?
Do we need to do this as a motion?
See,
just want to move on.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, you have to appropriate.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes. All right. Moving on to the fireworks funding, Commissioner Lemkool.
First of all, I'd like to make clarification that it is not the Convention Bureau Fireworks Fund. This is the Grand Traverse Community Fireworks Fund. And my motion is going to be that we take $1,000 out of this year's fund balance and give to the fireworks fund.
The fund balance or the contingency fund?
Contingency fund.
I just wanted to get
And that would be for the Traverse City, 4th of July?
The Grand Traverse Community Fireworks Fund.
Okay, for the?
4th of July fireworks.
For 012.
For 12.
And would you also consider a similar motion for South County, which we've consistently done?
I would reduce it by as much as we're reducing our fund here, so it'd be $250 then for Five Lake.
What do we normally
Actually,
do?
Put
usually
$1,000.
we do $5,000 for this one and
$1,000 for
and $1,000 for Five Lake.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would be more than happy to increase that to $2,000 if somebody would, if we wanted to do that, and then keeps it or whatever. But
Yeah.
I was
Sounds
trying to be conciliatory on this.
Anybody
thing.
for 5 and 1? We got 4 and
Yeah, well,
750.
So,
8.
2 and 5.
Are you trying to make a motion, or do you have a motion on the floor?
I made a motion for $1,000 for the Grand Traverse Community Fireworks Fund.
Support that.
Okay, is there discussion? Commissioner Henschel.
Move to amend the motion to include $250 for the Five Lake fireworks.
I can do that, sure.
Okay, is there any further first of all, we have to vote. We have a motion
Vote on
on the
the
floor
amendment.
by Lemkool, and it was seconded by Henschel. All right? Now, and Henschel has come back with an amendment that was seconded by Commissioner Lemkool. Now, we need to vote on the amendment. Any discussion on the amendment? I have a discussion.
Okay.
Just
I guess I would just prefer to do 2,000 for the fireworks and 1,000 for Five Lake. That's my preference. But
I agree.
10, 15.
any other discussion on the amendment?
Larry, the dollars are immaterial on this thing, but, I have a problem putting $1,000, funding fully Five Lake and not funding fully the Grand Traverse Community Fireworks Fund. So that's, when you start looking at
All right, let's
all
go.
this kind of stuff.
I mean, I would be fine with 2,500.
Somebody needs to tell me what motion I'm
Yeah,
voting
right.
on before I vote, please.
I know, I'm trying to work
I've
around this
lost
motion.
track.
Yeah, well,
All right, we have an amendment on the floor to do 250
For Five Lake.
Five Lake,
And
and
1,000 for
right.
we did, the amendment is just to add
Just
the
to add to
250 to the
the-
original.
That's all it
motion.
is. That's right.
Okay.
All right, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Gilman,
No.
Henschel,
Yes.
Lemkool,
Yes.
Thomas,
Nope.
Max Bauer,
Yes.
Inman.
No. Motion
4-3.
fails, 3.
Amendment dies.
Amendment dies, 3-3. All right, now we have the motion on the floor.
No, it was 4-3. Oh,
No.
wait, I'm sorry.
There's only
There's a
6 of
scratch
them.
out there. 3-3.
3-3, motion dies. Now we have the standing motion, and that motion is 1,000 for the
Community
Grand Traverse
fireworks.
fireworks. All right. And that could, I guess, can stand alone, and we can do another motion. Commissioner Gilman.
Just one comment on this, and you know, while we sit in the same session, we talk about people's jobs, as little as this $1,000 is, I can't support it. It's unnecessary, so.
Okay. I'm wondering if the commission would consider a motion of $2,000 for the city, or for the Grand Traverse fireworks,
Grand Traverse Community Fireworks Fund.
and $500 for Five Lake.
Move to amend the motion as you just stated.
Now, you didn't, well,
It'd be easier.
okay. Do we have a second?
Sure.
Okay, all right. All right, we have an amendment to
You're talking
move
2,000 for community
2,000 for the
foundation,
regular and
community
500,
fund.
okay? Okay, any other discussion on the amendment? Okay, roll call vote.
Commissioner Henschel,
Yes.
Lemkool,
Yes.
Thomas,
Nope.
Max Bauer,
Yes.
Gilman,
No.
Inman.
Yes, motion passes 4-2. That's the amendment.
Now you gotta vote on
Now
the
we need the
motion.
motion, which is the same as the amendment, is to fund, the motion on the floor right now is to fund 2,000 for the Grand Traverse
Grand Traverse Community
Community
Fireworks
Fireworks,
Fund.
and 500 for Five Lake,
From
The
Contingency
contingency
this
fund.
year.
2011.
from the 2011 contingency fund. All right. Any further discussion? Yes, Commissioner
I'll just
Henschel.
say once again that this is a contingency fund for the whole year. We're more than 3/4 way through the year roughly. And we've used less than 10% of the fund. I believe that for this small of an item, the money's there.
Good. All right, any other discussion? All right, we have a motion on the floor for 2,000 for the general Grand Traverse Fund and 500 for Five Lake. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Lemkool,
Yes.
Thomas,
Nope.
Max Bauer,
Yes.
Gilman,
No.
Henschel,
Yes.
Inman.
Yes. Motion passes 4-2. All right, moving on to the Community Collaborative, Commissioner Max Bauer, you have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, I have to recuse myself.
Okay.
Before we move on, we should mention that this is just on the fireworks. This is just a recommendation to the full board.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, actually, what will happen is you won't see it again until Dean brings you the budget amendment in October. And that's when you will approve it.
I just thought I'd mention
So you'll have
that.
the whole board there when you do that.
Okay. The community collaborative, you know, we've been talking about the dire financial straits in Grand Traverse County of our residents as far as job loss, et cetera. And certainly, we may have experienced some of that this evening, up close and personally. The community collaborative, in my view, is probably one of the most effective ways to combat poverty in Grand Traverse County. So therefore, and as I've said, I do agree that you can't just ask Dennis and Dean to find the money. So I will make a motion that we fund $5,000 for the community collaborative and reduce our 2012 contingency fund, keep it in the 2012 budget.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Max Bauer to fund the community collaborative, and that amount is $5,500?
Okay, $5,500.
Is
I
it
think it's
55?
55.
$5,500? And it would come from the 012 contingency.
Contingency, reduce the 012 contingency budget
Okay.
by that amount.
All right, is there support?
I'll support.
Okay. Supported by Gilman. Is there discussion on the motion? Commissioner Henschel.
I just don't like spending next year's money. I don't like reducing the contingency fund for next year. Once again, if it was from this year's, as I've said, I think about 4 times during this meeting now, we're about 3/4 of the way through the year. We've used less than 10% of this year's contingency fund. I would feel more comfortable with using this year's.
Does the motion maker wish to change the motion to the 11 contingency? No. Okay. Is there further discussion on the motion?
Well, I support it for discussion, but I tend to think that it'd be best, I agree with Commissioner Henschel on this, so
I agree with Jason. I'm for it, but I'd rather have it come out of the 011. We've taken some action tonight, but we've got plenty of room, I think, for some wiggle room in that amount for the remaining part of the year.
Yeah, you probably have somewhere right around 90,000.
Yeah, okay. So we have a motion on the floor to fund the community collaborative for $5,500 coming out of the 2012 contingency fund. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Thomas?
No.
Max Bauer?
Yes.
Gilman?
no.
Henschel?
No.
Inman?
No. Okay, motion fails 4-1. Do we have a motion to approve the community collaborative $5,500 coming out of the 2011 contingency fund?
I would prefer to wait to do that. I'm absolutely willing to do it, but
Get further into the year.
I'd like to get further into the year.
It's appropriate.
I make that motion.
All right, it's been moved by Commissioner Henschel to move forward with the allocation of $5,500 for the community collaborative and take it out of the 2011 contingency fund, and that balance at this point is approximately $90-some thousand. So we have plenty of room. Okay, is there any public comment on this section?
A second, I believe.
On that, I just have a...
Yes.
comment.
Yes, go ahead.
General comment.
No, on this subject he's talking about.
Is this on the community collaborative, and then we'll go to public comment?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll just sit here and listen.
Okay, just relax. All right, okay.
Did you get a second on that?
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute, we had a motion by you,
Need a second?
and do we have a second for the 2011 contingency? Can the chairman make a second?
Yes.
All right, I'll second that motion.
Bob?
Bob, can I, who are you asking?
No, go. Yeah.
Bob, where's Bob?
You can make the second.
Chairman
yes.
can make a second.
Absolutely.
All right, okay. So we have a motion by Commissioner Henschel, seconded by Commissioner Inman, to move forward with the allocation of $5,500 and have that come from 2011 budget. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Max Bauer?
No.
Gilman?
Yes.
Henschel?
Yes.
Lemko? Oh, sorry, you're abstaining. Thomas?
No.
Inman?
Yes, motion passes 3-2. Okay, is there any other?
I don't think so. I don't think so, because even though Commissioner,
Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 people, it's 3-2.
You're not going to
Well,
have
but
very damn long.
Commissioner
Did I not get the votes right?
We're going to have to check that, because Commissioner Lemkool is present, and
He's abstained from
he's
that vote.
abstained, so an abstention is a vote. That's my understanding. I think you need 4 votes to do it. I may be wrong, though. I may be wrong, Mr. Chairman. I mean, you know what? If you take the vote,
Yeah,
we'll
sure,
get it
look over.
clarified.
Yeah,
You know?
we'll ask Bob,
Yeah, yeah,
and we can bring it up at the next meeting.
absolutely.
Okay.
We can bring it up
It'll come back up.
at the committee meeting.
It's going to come back up
Yeah,
anyway.
it'll come back.
Yeah, so.
So record that as a 3-2, 3 yes, 2 no, 1 abstention due to conflict.
And check with council to see if that's...
Yeah, I'm afraid he's going to say it's considered it might be considered a no vote. I don't know. Under Robert's rules, I don't do it.
Are we on to the
Do we
others?
have do we have other?
I have one. And I wish we had more of a full board, but we'll, obviously, I think, much of what we're discussing today is going to come back to us. The Sheriff's Department accepted that grant, or we accepted that grant on behalf of the Sheriff's Department for the roadside sting operations, the seatbelt enforcement. We're looking to save money. We're looking to try to knock back some of the cost that we're taking out of the general fund. And the indication, if I recall correctly, the number $76,000 came up at one point as far as what they used to get for a grant. And it was also indicated that the grant money they accepted this time certainly would by no means cover the entire amount of the operations. In other words, we are bearing the brunt of this grant-funded operation, and it's as an unnecessary part of their operation, in my view. So I'd like to zero in on that $76,000 part, and I'd like to have $76,000 removed from the sheriff's budget directly and placed back into the general fund, or so that we don't have to take that out of the general fund. How would I word that for a motion?
I think your wording was appropriate.
Okay.
You got that one.
Can you repeat it? We're going to need a repeat on that.
You got that one?
Got that one.
I didn't get that one. All right. Can you repeat the motion, Commissioner Gillen?
Okay, I'd move that we take $76,000 from the sheriff's budget in 2012, and so we don't have to take it out of the general fund.
And what was that $76,000 allocated towards?
I would say let the sheriff apply it where he finds it's necessary. The sheriff. Because the sheriff puts together his particular part of the budget, correct, Dennis?
Well, he did offer cuts in this budget. We put it together, but he has offered the adjustments that were necessary.
So you're looking at it.
First, I think you need to get a second before we discuss it.
Okay, is there a second on that motion?
I'll support this for discussion.
All right.
Okay, let me comment. I think we're going to have to do some research into this, Commissioner, because and you may all recall better than me, I think what we did was we authorized the application for the seatbelt grant program. I don't know that we've accepted the award of it, but I might be wrong on that.
My assumption is that we approved the grant itself, and
we approved the application. When it comes to us, we have to approve the acceptance.
And if he gets it, though, it still means that as a part of their budget, they're going to have to pick up the slack where the grant does not cover for their operations. In other words, as a part of their operations, he must already have planned into the operation these expenditures. I feel that the expenditures are inappropriate in a time when we're really trying to tighten our belts, and frankly,
Play on words there.
Well, no,
Couldn't help it, I'm sorry.
But
it's been a long afternoon.
And I had asked, if you recall, I had asked for the amount that was spent outside of the grant monies. If you recall through the emails, I'd requested that information, and the sheriff could not provide it in time. I'd requested this last week.
Question on protocol, and then I'll call on Max Bauer and Lemko. Is that, have I lost my mind, or is that coming to the consent calendar tomorrow for
tonight?
For tonight's meeting?
I brought the wrong book for the budget meeting, so I can actually look.
If it's in the consent calendar, then we would address it there.
I brought the wrong book.
Point of clarification.
Hey, let's
The
see.
traffic enforcement grant is on tonight.
It is tonight.
So that we could vote on it at our board meeting. All right, do you withdraw your motion?
I don't know, actually.
You just pull it off the consent calendar.
Could I make a clarification on this? I just want everyone to understand. I understand what you're asking to do. I'm not taking a position on it one way or another, but what it will do is it will require the sheriff to reduce his staffing level if this gets approved. And the reason for that is this, and this is the difficulty in the way the budget is put together. You know, the sheriff, all our departments do this. We allocate staff, we set up a program, and then really, because of the diligence of the departments, they go out and seek grants to help support their staffing, which means there's less general fund required. So all these different grants help build the budget and reduce the cost of the general fund. So if you eliminate this grant, you just have to be aware, it will mean he will have to reduce staff down because he will have $76,000 less. Now, part of this grant, now the exception to that is part of this grant is to pay overtime. The seatbelt portion of that, he uses strictly overtime and puts extra police officers on duty to do that. So that part won't be impacted. But I just want to be clear, it may result in a reduction of staff.
You say the overtime wouldn't be affected?
Well, no, what I'm saying is, it wouldn't affect staffing. So in other words, if he's doing the whole seatbelt program, and the only way he funds it is he lets officers work overtime
I'm
to do
looking,
that.
I'm looking at $78,000 worth of overtime just on the county patrol alone.
Right.
And you know, there are other ways to manage that particular type of operation with both flex time, so we can minimize or eliminate overtime, frankly. I think, you know, the thing is, if he's willing to take the money and put together the operation, it's going to cost an additional amount, and this is why I asked the question of the sheriff. This is why I requested the information in the first place. If he's willing to spend additional money to pursue this particular detail, then it's money that if it's not necessary, it's extra money. Okay, I mean it's elsewhere. Or it's not necessary to spend otherwise without this particular program.
I guess all I'm gonna suggest is that in conjunction with the motion, you allow me to ask the sheriff to put together a letter that explains the impact of this, so that you at least have it in the budget.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree, and it may turn me about on this. I just think that we need to, for lack of a better word, we just need to tighten it. You know,
I understand.
As they say, tighten our belts a little bit.
Okay.
Commissioner Maxbauer.
Well, I certainly understand your dislike of this seatbelt thing. I'm not real fond of it myself. But I look at it a little differently. First of all, I think that our number one role as commissioners is public safety. And I think my votes have consistently said that our number one, my opinion, our number one role is public safety. That having been said, 1 in 5 municipalities have had to reduce their police and/or fire protection. I don't want that to happen to Grand Traverse County, and as a matter of fact, that's one of the reasons I voted to contract our custodial services, is because, you only have so much money and you have to prioritize. And I think, for me, public safety is a priority. Now, when those officers, and this will be a question for the sheriff tonight, when those officers are out doing seatbelt checks or, looking for inebriated drivers, that also was included in the program. They're still able, as far as I know, to respond to calls. And that, for me, I would not vote to reduce the sheriff's budget.
Okay.
I mean, he's already taken hits this year. So that's just me, and I'm certainly willing to ask him tonight, but I will not be supporting your motion.
Okay, and then we have Commissioner Lemko.
I had a point of order.
And that was going to be my next question to the board.
Yeah, my question is, are we talking about this year's budget or next year's budget?
Next year's, he says, I believe.
So this grant is in next year's budget also, and it's also up for us to vote again tonight?
To apply for the grant.
To apply for it.
Okay. So we're not talking about
pulling any money in.
not talking about next year's budget, or this year's
Not
budget.
this year's.
We're talking about next year's
Next
budget. Okay.
Okay. My comment is that I guess if I was in the sheriff's shoes, I would say that you have this on the consent calendar. The board has given note. He was here during the discussion. The board took a vote in the committee of the whole. In all fairness to the sheriff's department, It's on a consent calendar, and I don't think it would be appropriate for us to move forward with this motion, and we would just address this issue at our 7 o'clock meeting where the sheriff and undersheriff would be available for further discussion. So I will be voting no on this motion because I don't think it's fair to the sheriff or the undersheriff and their staff, because it is on the consent calendar for tonight, and it would give proper, that is the proper notice for him to come in and have a discussion with the commission. Commissioner Henschel.
I'm in favor of this motion because I believe it's in alignment with what I believe is fiscal conservatism, being good with our money. What we're trying to do is deter $72,000 of unneeded overtime in our police department. If we need another $72,000, that's almost 2 officers year-round. Let's just add 2 officers year-round and have more patrol if we want to put $72,000 into it. So I'm in favor of the motion.
So you're in favor of reducing the sheriff's budget by $76,000?
And putting that amount in the general fund for the sheriff's discretion.
Well, it wouldn't be in the sheriff's discretion. It would come back to the county commission.
Is that not the motion?
That is not the motion.
No, it's back in the general fund, but it addresses it a little differently. The point is, next year, when we start making decisions again, when we have even less money to work with, how much will we have to cut out of the sheriff's budget, and how much will we have to take out of the general fund? And if we can put that $76,000 back in the general fund next year, for the next time we're negotiating the budget, it may make the difference of somebody keeping a job then. One way or the other, it accomplishes 2 things. Obviously, it accomplishes the one thing, which is a message sent about spending money on what some people, including myself, might view as an unnecessary use of that overtime. And the other, it also keeps a job, actually, going down the road.
I'm sorry to complicate this, but I'm confused.
Page, it doesn't have pages.
No, but are you looking at general fund secondary road patrol?
County patrol, general fund, 314 sheriff,
Okay.
county patrol.
The grant, there are 2 grants on the agenda tonight. Okay, one is a traffic enforcement grant for $12,000. The other is a $75,000 and change submittal for secondary road patrol.
Has nothing to do with secondary road patrol. This has nothing to do with secondary road.
Part of it.
So you're just making a recommendation to cut the sheriff's budget by $75,000?
Or $76,000. Because as one of the numbers that came up during the discussion, and also being roughly the amount of the overtime that we're budgeting for.
Okay.
It's considered, obviously, I'm extrapolating this, okay, but considered to be a part of, or as a major part of, the activities that come about as the acceptance of the grant, as a part of the acceptance of the grant.
Okay.
So in other words, they're going to take a $12,000 grant, but they're going to spend $90,000 to implement it.
Well, no.
I mean, I'm just, I tried to get that answer.
Well,
I don't know.
if you look at the budget, and I just looked at the budget, it's going to be a $75,000 grant, and the cost of the program is $82,000.
I'm not talking about the secondary road budget. I'm talking about the seatbelt sting operation, the grant that's $12,000.
Okay, all right.
See, now, as a part of fulfilling that, though, there are activities that are going on that are paid for with general fund monies, and that includes the $85,000 or the $78,000 in overtime.
Well, I could be wrong, but my belief is that the $12,000 grant is all that what we spend for the enforcement program, and if you take that 12 away, it will eliminate that enforcement project.
I asked the question during the committee meeting, and when I asked the question during the committee meeting, he said it does not cover the entire cost of that operation.
Oh, okay.
And that's why I requested those numbers from the sheriff.
But all right, so I understand. I just don't think it's $75,000 or $76,000.
I'm pulling a number out of the hat based on a number that they had mentioned, the grant size that they had gotten prior, okay, as well as looking at the overtime of $78,000.
Yeah, and I think we may have to clarify that because I think we're confusing. I think he confused the numbers because when he talked about the grant that they get at 76,000, that has been the secondary road grant. They've been getting that for years.
And that has nothing to do with what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and I have no recollection in my 10 years of them ever getting $75,000 or $76,000 for seatbelt enforcement grants, ever. It's always been around $12,000. I'm just saying that because I just want to make sure that we understand the impact of this. But you know, it can always be clarified later. I just want to make sure I've given you good information. I'm afraid I'm not giving you good information.
That's why I asked, that's why I requested those numbers.
All right, any other further comments on the motion?
Call the question.
You called the question before I even made my remarks, so I'll stick with it. I'll go with the protocol. Okay, we have a motion on the floor to reduce the sheriff's department budget by $76,000 for the 012 budget year. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Limcool?
No.
Thomas?
No.
Max Bauer?
No.
Gilman?
Yes.
Henschel?
Yes.
Inman?
No. Motion fails 4-2. Okay, is there any other stuff before we go to public comment? Okay, we will now open public comment. Bob, Donick, you're on.
Is that chair too comfortable or what?
Real quick, the letters that are read into the record, as Mr. Henschel did tonight, when I get online and I look at the minutes of the meeting, all it says is that a letter from so-and-so is read in to the minutes.
They attach it to the minutes.
Well, they're not attached to the minutes online. They're not there.
No, but they don't, the online is not the official minutes of the meeting.
Well, I don't want to bring up the city commission, but
Yeah.
they do.
We have, the clerk has the official set of the Board of Commissioner
So
minutes.
you're
but
saying the only way a member of the public can get a letter
if
from
there's
the
an
public?
if there's an attachment or a handout, the clerk has that, and it's on record down in her office, but we do not, we only publish the abbreviated version or the regular version of the discussion at the commission meeting. Okay?
It's not the answer that I wanted, but thank you.
Okay, all right, you're welcome. And I've had that question asked me once before, and I did do some research, and
Which
that's
is why
just
you
way
had
it is.
the answer on the tip of your tongue.
Well, I had it on the tip of my tongue, I already been through it. Any other public comment? Okay, we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Henschel, seconded by Gilman. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, passes. Thank you.
God, my shoulders are seizing up.
Marathon session.
Oh.
I'm not. I'm going to stay here and get ready.
It's not even.